Something's wrong.
Okay.
All right, now we're here. Yes, we're here. We're supposed to be here. This is legit. Right?
Are you sure?
I think.
Because the stream looks
Yeah,
black on my other screen.
See us.
Oh,
I see
no.
it. I see us.
No, it's
The
there.
little
It's there.
hamster's running now. He's
there.
running.
There we go.
The tired hamster woke up for the last show.
I swear everything
Kia ora
worked.
koutou. Kia ora to everyone who's come to watch. As you can see, we are running slick and well oiled. You'd never guess that we're the only returning crew to this evening's games, because we got this on lockdown. You are here for episode 1, or kind of more like an episode 0 of No Space to Fly, a game of Scum and Villainy, which is a Forged in the Dark game. We get to play in space, like Star Wars, but better, because it's we own it, not Disney, and we can come up with whatever crazy shit we want.
We won't subvert your expectations and produce a terrible film.
Basically, yeah, we're coming in without that big franchise money. There is no expectations, therefore can't subvert them. So before we go any further, I'll go around the circle, introduce you to everybody who's here, and then we'll crack on, talk about sponsors. Then we'll get stuck in. We'll get our teeth sunk in. There's not going to be much story today, unfortunately, folks. This is going to be a character creation. So Session 0 is talking about what's to come. But enough of that. We'll get to that shortly. I would normally go counterclockwise. As you see, there's a big black hole where Acidic Plague is. Ryan Plague is currently laid low with the vicious man flu, and has informed us he's having a fever. And there's no cowbells in Okinawa, so he's out of luck. He's laid up, so he can't make it today. Hopefully he'll be here next week. But next we have Luke. Yog, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I just had a 10-piece chicken nugget from the Wendy's on my way home from work, and that's going to keep me going through the session, I think. And you can't never be sad after a 10-piece nugget, so I'm doing all right.
Chicken nuggets are this weird thing. It's like the sausages of the chicken world, and you shouldn't like them, but you do.
Yeah.
It's the sauce that makes it.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
anything. It's
Yeah.
the sauce. It's always the sauce.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah,
I'm a big sauce guy.
yeah. Dried nuggets are pretty sad. Yeah. All right. You hyped for some Scum and Villainy, or are you like everybody else and haven't properly read the book?
Oh, I'm the least proper of having read the book. I didn't read nearly enough of the book. But I'm excited for it because I know what kind of character I want to play, and I'm excited to roleplay that character. Mechanics aside,
All right.
I'm excited for the system and the setting, rather. The setting.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, luckily this is a pretty rules light-ish game, so we'll figure it out as we'll just do it live. We'll do it live. And next we have the man who's normally behind the screen, pulling the levers, but we've pulled him out and got him into the party. Drake, sup, bruh?
Hey, I gotta say, Charlotte, I love you. The show had act up on you because I asked you to bail me out today because I had to travel to Phoenix and back, 4 hours away. So she jumped in to take all the heat. So it only fitting that the game acted up for you. So, I owe you a beer when we get together. So. No, I didn't read the book.
All right, cool. We'll talk about the rules in this session. It's a good thing that we decided to do session 0 and not just jump straight into it.
There's a
That's
reason
cool,
why I
that's fine.
suggested it.
Yeah. I was being slack too, and I was like, oh, everyone else is. Yeah, we're all struggling. We're all struggling, but it's okay. It's all right. Next we have Sean. Now, Sean here, I'm not going to bother asking if he's read the book. He doesn't need to. He's played Blades in the Dark, and that's close enough to bullshit his way through it. So
It is. I'm gonna get terminology wrong, and Liam's gonna know what I mean, and we're just gonna roll eyes and ignore it because I'm using Blades in the Dark terminology, with Scum and Villainy probably labels it slightly differently. But yes, the theme of the pre-show is sort of continuing with me. I got off a plane about less than an hour ago from missing my flight, but I managed to make it just in time. Travel is hell, and I've had a hell of a week. So it's Mother's Day too. For us,
It is Mother's Day for you all.
It is Mother's Day.
Oh,
Congratulations!
Shit. I gotta text mum.
And see, it's okay because where we're at, we still have another 4 hours. You're screwed, buddy.
I'm fucked. Oh man.
Oh no.
I think that's a clip. That's a clip.
Yeah.
I pulled
Right
one
there.
over on Liam there.
I'm gonna go do that right now.
Normally, he's the one spreading horrible Cthulhu-like horror and terror into our hearts, but I managed to get one straight in there, boom, right in there.
Oh man.
Killed his soul a little bit. He's in trouble. It's great. No, I'm looking forward to it. I've been wanting to play a sci-fi RPG for a very, very, very long time. I know Blades, so this should be nice and sweet. I have not read the book. I have done very little prep because I have had a hell of a last week and a half that I won't get into. But I'm really looking forward to this because it's the start of a really nice new week. And I've always wanted to play with Drake after hearing his voice behind the curtain. So I'm just going to lavish praise everywhere and then laugh at Liam for forgetting that it's Mother's Day. That's what I'm going to do.
Hey, I've seen the text now. We're
Charlotte,
good. We're
you're
good.
pretty good.
You sent a
You're pretty
text.
good,
You
Charlotte.
texted your mother on Mother's Day. Oh.
Yeah. I mean, we work together. I
Gotta
gift
send
today
photos.
is not
His
not
mum got
having
his
to see
connection.
me.
Mum
We'll
put-
send her the clip on email.
Yeah, fuck. I was thinking yesterday, make sure you wake up and you're like, Mother's Day, make sure, Jamie makes your breakfast in bed. And then I fucking forgot. Completely forgot. Last but certainly not least, Charlotte. Sup?
Good morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time it is for you. Oh, we had Drake with us for a whole 10 minutes, and I think he's going to die laughing or something. So we'll be looking for another person to fill in for him. Yeah, no, I think Drake and I are going to be doing a little bit more swapping off this season for engineering duties. He's got things coming up. I've got things coming up. And, the first two shows went off without a hitch. I know what I did this time around. It was just a stupid fucking mistake. I was just too fast. That's what it was. It was too freaking fast.
Stupid fucking mistakes.
Stupid fucking mistakes. That's all. That will be my catchphrase in the game itself.
This is stupid fucking mistake.
Yeah, it's stupid fucking
Alright,
mistakes.
Fair. And
Yeah.
how hyped / prep to you?
As I said, I have hardly read the book. I went through it. I tried to go through it some more this week. In my defense, I threw together our Google Sheet character sheet, so that has to count for something. Has to count for
You've
something.
got a decent understanding. You'll be one of the players that hasn't read the book but knows where everything is on the sheet. Whereas there'll be a player that will have to tell where everything is on the sheet every single time.
Yeah.
So
I know what things do. I don't know how they work mechanically, but I know what they do.
All right.
And I know that we want the heavy weapons.
Okay. And my name's Liam. Kia ora. So, I mean, who am I kidding? Most of you have probably seen us before. Everyone else would have fucked off by now because we're clearly not organised. But I'm the games master, or I don't know what they call it in this system.
Space Master.
And I don't know. Lord and Overlord of the game.
Supreme leader of the universe.
The Darth Master. We'll go with that one. Basically what we're playing is Scum and Villainy. A Blades in the Dark's the Forge in the Dark hack, where you play in space, I believe by Evil Hat Productions. We'll be playing here every week at 11 p.m. Eastern time, and all these videos will be going up on YouTube as well as Twitch. So if you happen to be watching a video, want to watch us live, you happen to be kicking around about 11 p.m. Eastern time, come check us out. But before we begin, before we get stuck in, I need to go through and thank some of our sponsors. Our sponsors today, as always, is Fantasy Grounds. All the dice rolls you see right below Sean's little head down that way, down there, they are all done in Fantasy Grounds. It's our virtual tabletop of choice. You can check it out for free at fantasygrounds.com. Last season, Fantasy Grounds killed more characters than I have in my entire GMing career. So it was good. It's good. Fantasy Grounds is all good, especially when you can try it for free. Next, great start there, Sean. Next, we have that's too good. Next, we have Wayland Games, where you can go and buy all your minis. WaylandGames.co.uk. Get yourself a huge range of Dungeons and Dragons, Warhammer, 40k, so on and so forth, for 20% off. Next up, we have our sponsor, Tabletop Loot, who sell incredible dice. Whenever we hit 20 retweets on the tweet, which will be popping up soon over in chat, you get that retweeting. We hit 20 retweets, we give away a set of dice. We always love giving away dice. Who doesn't love giving away dice? Fucking dice are dope. And then next, that's it. Yeah, the tweets going in. Finally, I remind you how to interact with today's game. You can donate to affect the game, giving players natural ones, natural 20s, although in this game it's all d6s, so we'll say 1s and 6s, wild magic swords, and so on, so forth. If you like what you see, clip it. Let us know you clipped it, and then go around sharing it all on the internet. We always love to see that sort of stuff. But otherwise, that's it for sponsors. Right, so Scum and Villainy, no space to fly. We fucked up and we didn't get prepared. There's a bunch of shit I was supposed to do in the background and I got distracted. My flatmate got a Maine Coon kitten. It's fucking adorable. I've been busy, okay? I've been busy. And then everyone else has had, as we all figured out at the start, shit going on. And then we also heard that Ryan was sick. He told me a couple of days ago he was feeling pretty under the weather and was struggling already. So, it seemed prudent that that we do a session 0 because people still hadn't had characters together. They didn't know all the background stuff and everything like that. So we're basically pulling today's episode out of our asses, folks. Didn't want to leave you hanging for our very first date and miss the very first one. So I'm just talking, trying to fill out 3 hours. Now,
see, Liam, you're making the classic mistake of making this look like it wasn't intentional. We totally planned to have a session 0. Don't listen to this man.
Yeah, we just didn't
All
tell you.
going according to plan.
We're catching everyone up.
That's it, yeah. So, for those of you who may not have played Blades in the Dark or any other Forged in the Dark hacks before, and this is for our players as well as our audience, the long and short of it is that it's basically a narrative style game. It's a game where the players are as much in control of what's going on as the games master. This is not the sort of game where the railroad. Hey?
Yeah, maybe it was me, but you cut off for a second there.
No, he did too. He cut off.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm working
It's a
now.
cat. Yeah,
Yeah, you're good now.
Blame the cat.
Okay. Yeah, fucking cats. So it's the sort of game where players have a lot of agency. They control what's going on. They control where things are going, what things are doing, so on and so forth. And the mechanics are just sort of there to facilitate that. One big thing that this game does that other games don't necessarily do so well is it skips out a lot of the faffing about and planning and cuts straight to the action. Which we'll see next week when we effectively start straight in the action. Now, it's a dice pool system, right? And this is as much for my players as you guys, so you guys should be looking at your character sheets over on Google Drive. Basically, there is 3 primary categories that stats are broken down into. You have insight, which is one sort of mental acumen. So that includes stats such as doctor, hack, rig, and study. They're fairly self-explanatory. Doctor is how good you are at fixing stuff or knowing doctorly stuff. They're pretty broad attributes for these. Hack is how good you are at hacking into computers, gaining information on computers, all that sort of shit. Rig is how good you are at mechanics, building stuff, fixing stuff, and then study is how good you are at assessing the situation you're in, learning new information, that sort of thing. So to put it into perspective, if you were trying to get through a door, there's always, it's up to the players how they do that. Let's say there's I watched Return of the Jedi last night. On the Battle of Endor, they're trying to break into the bunker.
It was actually going to be my go-to. I was literally going to be like, like the bunker and Battle of Endor.
Yeah. So in the bunker, right, it starts off effectively with Princess Leia making a poor attempt at hacking it, right? Well, she's not even hacking it. She's putting in the code, doesn't work. And then R2-D2 comes along. He interfaces with the thing, and he attempts to hack it. Doesn't go so well. R2, I'm assuming his gender, R2-D2 gets shot and does this little scream thing, gets pushed away from the door. And then in the end, Han Solo gets up and goes, I'm going to have to hotwire it. And he ends up effectively rigging the door to get it to open, right? Well, tries to anyway. He ends up failing in the end. That's an example of different ways you can approach things. This is one of those games where there's never one way to do things. It's a game that's set up to try and stop you from being forced to have one solution to every problem. Some solutions will be better than others, but this is an example of that. So think of stuff like that in this situation. Feel free to be inventive. I am, in our Blades in the Dark game that Sean runs, I play a guy with really high wreck, and I often use that for combat. I'm like, I'm wrecking that guy. I'm not fighting him. It's not skirmish. I'm wrecking him. So often I have less effect normally, or it's more difficult for me to do it, but that's just the way it works.
The
so that's
repercussions,
insight.
like all the sort of establishing the action you're doing tells you in the narrative, because you don't say I hack this door. That's you say I pull open the terminal, I pull out if this was Star Wars, I pull out a hydro spanner and I go in there and I start moving around wires trying to find blah blah blah, and then that establishes the fiction for like, oh well, that's going to be great because this is a really crappy security outpost with no firewalls, so this is going to be really easy for you to achieve. There's things like that you can do in the system.
Yeah, so that's insight. That's all your knowledge-based skills. And then you have prowess. Prowess is your more physical skills. There's helm, which is how good you are at flying, driving, riding a speeder bike, that sort of thing. If you're in control of something, you're generally taking the helm. There is scramble, which is how good you are at climbing up a wall, running through cover, jumping for the blaster on the floor before the enemy grabs it. That's the thing. That's scramble. There is scrap, that's fighting. That's your combat stat, because you're scrapping them, and that means scrap is I'm a scrappy. So that's what that is. So that's your shooting, stabbing, all that sort of stuff. If you're good at one, you're good at all of them. Because when you watch movies, how often do you see someone who can shoot really well, but they can't swing and punch someone? You never see Conan pull out a bow and arrow and miss, right? Like, if you're good at fighting, you're good at fighting. It's quite a cinematic system on that sense. And then you have skulk, which is how good you are at hiding, sneaking, so on and so forth. Fairly self-explanatory. Again, that's your prowess. Then lastly is resolve. These are more your these are not so much skills
based sort of thing.
Yeah, not so much skills as they are your willpower. So there's a tune. This game has something which is totally not called the Force. It's called the Way, and it's not the Force. It's the Way. It's different. It's not the Force. It's not. And a tune is to do with that. It's kind of a mixture of the Force and the Warp in 40k. There are monsters in it. There are nasty things in it. It's generally nasty. But it's also the force. It gives people powers and things. Attuning to it is handy. Then there's command, which is how good you are at commanding people to do stuff, telling people to do things they don't necessarily want to do. Then there's consort, which is getting along with people that you already get along with, or getting information out of them, stuff like that. So it's like if you wanted to talk to somebody to find out some information on a bounty you're chasing after, you'd consort with them to do so. But then there's sway, which is how good you are at convincing people who don't necessarily want to do something. You're not telling them, you're not commanding them to, you're not necessarily intimidating them. It's like, if you do this, I'll give you this. So think of it as charm, negotiation, haggle, that sort of stuff. So those are all your primary stats. Now, this game is a dice pool system, right? It's pretty basic, right? What I've described to you is 50% of the rules already. This game is a dice pool system, so your points at each one of these stats represent a dice you can roll, which is affected by what's going on in game. And when you roll a die or a group of die, they're always d6s, and you want to get as high as possible. So you want to try and get a 6, and that's a success. 2 6s is a critical. A 4 or a 5 is a success with a complication, and then a 1, 2, and a 3 is a failure, and then failures always have consequences, generally. So it's pretty basic, really. We're just rolling groups of 6s and trying to roll high. Simple as that. There's a bit more complexity. I don't think that's relevant so much to the viewers at home, but it gives you guys a basic idea of what these stats are. So, clear as mud? You guys know where we're at as far as mechanics go? Okay.
I just wanted to interject real quick, because earlier you said to look at our character sheets. I don't have one of those. I can look at everyone else's. That's what I'm doing. I just wanted to let you know.
Yeah, when you choose a class,
you
copy the class you want to make the... So I think for your character was muscle.
Yeah, muscle.
So if you copy the muscle sheet and then make a rename it as you.
Okay, cool.
Right. So yeah, if you've ever played basically if you've ever played any of the Blades games, you've played this. If you've ever played Apocalypse World, you're halfway to playing this. This is like an iteration of those powered by the Apocalypse games. Same basic idea. This is slightly more mechanical. Now, in this, you don't have to worry so much about your inventory and things. There's no like, I go out and buy this bit of kit. Generally speaking, there are exceptions. Before you go into a session, you tell me what your load is. It can be light, it can be normal, or it can be heavy, and then that determines how many items you're carrying. And then you tell us what item you're on your sheet. There's a list of items. You choose one when you need it. So, for example, we just established that Luke is playing muscle, right? So he goes in. Let's say he doesn't care that people can see he's on the job. So he goes in for heavy load. He's fully armored. He's fully equipped. He's got 6 inventory points that he can use for something. Now, let's say a situation pops up in game, because we're not planning, remember, we're jumping straight into the action. Let's say he's up high on the building and he can see across the other side of the base an enemy inside, sitting at a window, typing on a computer, and that's the person that they're here to kill. He can then say, and then I pull out my sniper rifle, and he ticks off 2 boxes of inventory. We don't need to plan that shit in advance. We're here to have a good time, not a long time. We're not here for the tyranny of fun. We're here to get straight to the action. So as long as he's got those 6 spaces, those 2 spaces, he can pull out that weapon or whatever if it's on his sheet. It's pretty basic stuff. So it's pretty cool. Like I said, there's slightly more complexity, but we'll get to that when it matters. So, does anyone have any mechanical questions before I start talking about the setting, and then we start discussing everyone's fluff, their characters, the backstory of the party, that sort of thing?
You probably want to touch on, because it's every time we roll dice, this is the conversation that's going to happen just on position and effect.
Yeah. Okay. So at the start of every roll, every time the player's like, right, I want to hack that door, we have a discussion beforehand where I ask them what they're using, in this case, hack, and then we determine the position and the effect. The position is the risk, right? So you have standard, risky, and desperate. Those are those 3 positions. That's how safe it is to do so, and that determines what the consequence will be on a 1 through 5. So desperate, obviously, really bad. If you don't do this right, it's going to go bad for you. Risky is pretty standard. You can do it, but there's going to be a trade-off. Controlled, you're in control. You know, if you fail, the worst that will happen is you have to do it again, but a different way. You just don't do what you're trying to do. And then the effect is what effect you can hope to expect on a typical result. So it can be, I'm trying to remember what the low one is. Limited effect.
Limited.
No effect.
Well,
There's
no effect.
No effect. Limited effect. Normal effect. Or standard effect, sorry. And then is it
Great
good,
effect.
then great? Yeah, great effect.
And then beyond
Yeah.
great, essentially. Would
Then
be
beyond
like,
great,
oh,
yeah.
whatever.
So, and you can exchange those. So if you're currently in a risk, let's say you're in a firefight, right? And in the other games, you'd roll to shoot, they'd roll to shoot, you take turns. And this one, you're like, right, I'm going to run in there and I'm going to shoot the stormtrooper. Let's say this is Star Wars. I'm going to run in there, shoot the stormtrooper. Okay, that sounds risky. You're running in, you've got good cover, but you're going to shoot the guy and it's going to be like a standard effect or a great effect. Let's say we're using Luke's big sniper rifle. So it's going to be great effect. If he hits it, he's going to kill it. Or no, because for this example, it has to be standard effect. He's just using a normal gun. Standard effect. It's risky, but it's standard. So he might get hurt. He's shooting at a guy. The guy's shooting back. They could, you know. So if he rolls a 4 and a 5, he hits him. The other guy hits him. They have a, you know, like they've shot each other up. The other guy's hurt. He's hurt. They carry on, right? Just like that. That's just how it works. But let's say Luke's like, no, I want to really cap this guy. I'm not taking cover here. I'm running down the hall, guns up, guns blazing, getting as close as I can and wrecking that guy. Okay, so we now switch those positions. So we go from a risky position up to a desperate position, right? Because he's no longer taking cover. He's in the open. He's easy to shoot. He's probably going to get shot. But great effect because he's getting close to the guy, shooting him in the face. You see what I mean? It's a bit of a trade-off. Now, there's bonuses. Whenever you do a desperate roll, you gain experience. So you kind of almost want to be rolling desperately because you get XP. The downside is if you roll anything but a 6 on a desperate roll, it's probably going to really hurt. really, really hurt.
You're going to
possibly
be
kill you.
accruing stress very quickly.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So that's the basics of the mechanics. There's stress and things. We don't need to go into that, but that's to give you a rough idea of what's going on. The party can read up on the rules before next week, guys, for the rest of it. But that's the basics of the character sheet that you need to know for character creation. Now, setting. I've said it's a bit like Star Wars, but we're doing something slightly different. We're if you've played Red Dead Redemption or you've seen the movie The Wild Bunch, we're chasing that idea in space. So it's a bit of a space western. It's being on the edge of the frontier. You're in the Procyon sector, right on the edge of the hegemony, not the empire, the hegemony. You're right on the edge of the hegemony, and in the last place where you can get away with piracy, banditry, all that sort of stuff. So it's, you know, the whole no space to fly is referring to the fact that we're running out of places to go. You know, you're the last of the old bandits sort of vibe, and sort of carving a living out on the last frontier, which is in the process of being civilized. So that's sort of the idea we're going for here. Now, the party has already decided that the crew they want to play as is determined by, you know, your crew is determined by your ship type, and the ship type the party has chosen is called, the model is called a Cerberus. It's a bounty hunter's vessel. It's the vessel for people who want to go out, claim bounties, extract people, that sort of thing. It's a pretty hands-on, militant style sort of ship, and that implies the crew is, you know, they go out, they kidnap people, collect bounties, extract people, information, stuff like that. That's not what they're limited to, but that's what they're good at. So I think let's go through and talk to everyone about what character ideas you had in mind. We'll have this discussion amongst us all, free form, so we can discuss how you guys know each other, what your background and stuff is, and then we'll flesh out the crew. So, who wants to go first? Who has a solid character idea they're ready to share with us all?
I think I do.
Okay, go for it.
My character sheet's like the only one that's really done. Except for Drake's. Drake's might be done as well. I had my character done before I even read the rules.
So what's your
I-
character concept here? What are you thinking? What are you wanting to play?
Well, I'm looking at the Stitch. So in this setting, the Stitch is like a medic. It's a doctor. So what I was thinking for her, and her name will be Celeste, is that she was a legit doctor at one point. I'm not exactly sure when it was that she ended up losing it, but she lost her license. So she ended up helping out the colonists as like a back alley surgeon of sorts. If they needed stitching up, she was there to give them a hand. If they had some organ failures that they needed, she was there to give them a hand. By way of, essentially, if you've ever seen Repo, a genetic opera, or the genetic opera, similar to the Repo Man, was he would go and he would get the organs that her people needed from the feds that were trying to civilize the area. Is the rough concept. I see you rolling your eyes at me.
So you're an organ thief.
Yes.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is a bunch of good law-abiding citizens woke up in bathtubs full of ice, missing kidneys whenever your character was in town. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, we're not stating that they woke up.
But
Okay.
other people woke up with kidneys. So it
Exactly,
worked.
in the bathtubs.
Exactly. In the bathtub.
Right. Okay. Okay. Cool. So I see that right, for heritage you chose colonist. So you're from the frontier yourself, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. And your background was academic, so you went somewhere and studied maybe in a hegemony before heading back out to
I feel
to
that
the-
she was educated in civilization, and then the opportunity to go colonize came around.
Okay.
So she was able to go with the colonists to get these places set up because they would have needed doctors. So it would have been a perfect opportunity for her to get away from it all, to be able to go and help where she could.
And perhaps, just from hearing your character, that's sort of a setup for maybe there was also a push factor, because if you're harvesting, if you're on the wrong side of the law, a lot of the thing that happened historically was you were given a choice: go out to the colony or hang, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, something there could have been where she lost her license. She was then sent out as more of a medic than a doctor, because she still had
Well, 'cause
value
people-
without.
Yeah, send you somewhere where licenses don't matter so much. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, I'm starting to pick up what you're putting down. So just so the audience at home knows, you have two special abilities. Your starting ability is I'm a doctor, not a... And what that means is you can push yourself to roll your doctor rating whilst performing a different action. But then each time you do, you have to say which patient, research, or posting taught you this trick. So what that means is, obviously, one of your strongest stats is doctor. You're very good at it. You can choose to use that at a cost, right? It costs you 2 stress. Stress in this is like a currency / hit point system. So you can choose to burn a couple of stress to argue why you can use your doctor ability. So an easy one is if you're fighting someone, you turn around and say, well, I'm a doctor, so I know that if you hit someone here, that's a liver shot, that's going to hurt, that sort of thing. So you have to justify it. It's not a freebie, but you give us a good idea of what you're up to. Explain your backstory each time. Like, I was on a planet one time, and this person I was working on. I don't know. This you could explain it. It's up to you to be as inventive as you want with that. And the other one is a pretty basic one. Go on.
So in a case, like say for our group, I could go in a certain situation that I'm a doctor, not a sniper, and then to do a background with Yogzula's character, who would be a sniper. He has spent time during his convalescence, after he's recovering from other things, regaling me with stories of his past adventures, where he has crawled up to a place after like 500 meters, waited for 3 days for the perfect shot. The wind was right. He went into detail of explaining how he knew the wind was right because he has nothing but time on his hands. He took the shot, being clear to say that he just slightly pulled the trigger, not squeezing it, just pulled it ever so slightly, braced the rifle in, and waited for that shot. Something that she would have heard in great detail from.
Yeah, although do know that how good your description is does influence that position and effect that we discussed earlier. So if it's as simple as, well, while I was patching someone up, they told me how to do their job, you're not going to do it as good as they will, obviously. But you get to use your better stats. So it's a bit of a trade-off, you know. Like Yog will always be the better sniper. However, it lets you do things that otherwise you probably wouldn't want to do. Because if you don't have any points in the stat and you have to use that stat, your old 2 dice pick the lowest, which is bad.
It's the sort of thing which I read because it says picks. Say which patient taught you this trick. So I would more think of it. You were patching up Yog after he's regaling a tale of an assassination by a sniper rifle, and he says he's telling you like, oh, you know, I was doing this thing, and the only thing that made this shot work was remembering to pull the trigger between heartbeats. And then that would be like a trick that you're like, well, I'm a doctor, not a sniper, but I do know to fire between heartbeats. It's that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's a good one. Yeah. So that's kind of how it works. It's a pretty flexible ability, very flexible. It means that you can sort of use, and then you get to use your core stat and anything you want, really, if you're inventive enough. And then the other ability you chose was patch. You may doctor someone during a job to allow them to ignore the effects of a harm penalty. This isn't Dungeons and Dragons or any other game. There's no healing people mid-session. But what you can do is they can ignore an injury that they take. Injuries are only lost in downtime. But if you do that, then they can at least push through it. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that only applies to stuff that harm you took this session or this adventure. It seems a bit weird that you'd start every adventure and the first thing you do is turn around and patch everyone for last session's adventures. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I would be thinking that last session's adventures, we would have enough downtime in between that they would be mostly healed by the time we have to go again. Like, I'm thinking the way that would work is since Sean is more likely to go run and do stupid things, as we noticed last season in Simbaroom, he might take a bullet.
Excuse me?
And while he takes a bullet...
Wow. Whoa.
Projection much? Jeez. That's true.
So he takes the bullet. I'm nearby. He comes off to the side. I'm able to patch him up. He's able to shrug it off for now. Keep on doing what he's going to do, and then we have to deal with it after the session's over, after the current adventure is taken care of. That's how I would see that one.
Okay, so I see also everyone starts with a couple of old friends, one whom they have a bad relationship with and one whom they have a good relationship with. So going from top to bottom, you have a poor relationship with Jakev, who is a drug dealer. Give us some context around that. Who's Jakev and why don't you like him? Or why doesn't he like you?
He doesn't particularly like being called jackass, so I would avoid saying that to him. But at one of my postings, he was a drug dealer, so he did what drug dealers do and dealt drugs. And that there was a bunch of poorly manufactured drugs that got around. It ended up doing a lot of damage to some pretty good friends. So I tried to take him out.
Okay.
Didn't
and
work.
clearly failed.
Yeah, he's still around. So
Okay.
one day.
All right. And that can still. This is obviously a character who can complicate adventures and all sorts. All right. And nextly. Is that a word? Nextly?
It is now.
You just say next,
Yeah.
man. Just say,
Next, we have Liney, a hospital admin. I can imagine why you're friends, but tell us anyway.
Yeah, she's a lovely woman. After losing my license, it became harder to get a hold of drugs that I needed for the patients that I had. So having friends with a hospital admin, she was perfect at making things disappear, making shipments go missing. Just one little box of injections here or there, nothing major, nothing to raise any big flags, but enough to be able to let me help those who needed my help.
Okay, cool. Now remember this when we play, because this is the sort of thing where either in preparation for a heist or a job, or even during, you can have a flashback. You can trigger flashbacks in this. What you can do is say, well, hold on, before the session, I went and saw Liney, my hospital admin, and she told me what days this particular shipment was going to this hospital. So we know where to wait, what door to wait at this building when the medical supplies arrive or whatever. It's the sort of thing where, again, like all stats in this, feel free to be quite inventive or flexible with this stuff. Don't feel like you're limited to they're deliberately broad is what I'm getting at. This is a game that it rewards and encourages inventiveness. So be inventive. If you've taken the piss, I'll let you know. So what about you other two while Drake's just popped off? Do either of you guys have an idea of what character you're wanting to play?
Yeah, I had a concept. I think I shared it with you guys. Basically, he hasn't told anyone on the crew his real name. He goes by the name Ghost Dog. It's a bit code name of his. And he's a former Black Ops mercenary. He belonged to a private organization, but in a job gone bad and an explosion of a ship, he was recovered in zero gravity, freezing temperatures, and he was augmented by his organization with cybernetics. So like half of his body is kind of covered in these cybernetics. Some of his jaw and his throat are, and he's kind of just a rootin' tootin' space cowboy who kind of got like a renewed. He doesn't really give much of a shit about a whole lot of stuff. After having thought he was dead, and then coming back, it was kind of a life-changing experience for him. But I haven't filled out anything on the sheet because you guys, I just said I didn't even know I had one until half an hour ago.
Don't worry.
That's okay.
There's not that much you have to do.
It's pretty straightforward, but we can actually talk it out if you like. So cybernetics, there's actually rules in the system to replace your starting ability with cybernetics. That said, the starting ability for the muscle is unstoppable. You can push yourself to do one of the following: perform a feat of physical force that verges on superhuman, or engage a small gang on equal footing in close combat. So, you can fight like you're several men, or you can be as strong as several men effectively. That, in a way, almost does what cybernetics would do.
Yeah, I could flavor that in such a way that he's doing those things because of the cybernetics,
Yeah. Alternatively, out of session, we can have a look at the rules for replacing that ability with something else, which makes a bit more sense potentially. But that's a pretty good one. So, what's his heritage? Where does he sort of come from? Obviously, he's been in the military. So, is he originally an Imperial, or is he from out on the edge of the colonies, or what?
I would say that he probably has a. When you say Imperial, it makes me think of like a more noble upbringing, but I'm not sure what the context of that is within the system.
I guess it could be. Yeah,
it just means you're from the hegemony, really. You're from the four worlds.
Yeah, he might be from the. I like that actually. Maybe he's from there, but he doesn't really fit in with those people quite as much. Well, at least not the people he used to associate with. Maybe he had some military background before joining a private organization with more structure and rank and
if you do that,
honor and stuff like that.
Your and my character concepts are gonna they're gonna work together.
They're going to work together. They're going to have conflict.
No, as in they're going to work together. As in we can make them work together, right? Like,
oh, good.
Because there'll be a similar but different background.
Yeah, because I'm looking at the heritages, right? These are the options: Imperial, so like from the core worlds, Spacer, which someone who's lived out and about, like on various vessels and things. You're more at home in space than you are on the planet. Colonist, obviously, frontiersman. Manufactured, which might fit your whole cybernetic vibe as well, actually. And then there's Wanderer, which could also fit the whole idea of a veteran, someone who's sort of just making their way around. But then there's Xeno, which, unless you're an alien, doesn't really make sense. So have a think around those. I think you can choose 2 heritages. You're not limited to one. It doesn't really matter. It's just sort of fluff, helps inform you, and certain characters react to certain ways to different heritages. So it's just something to maybe think about. Another thing as well is all characters in this have a vice and a purveyor of that vice. The which and your vice is what you do between sessions to remove stress. This is something that all you players should be thinking about. So your vice options are like faith, gambling, luxury, obligation, pleasure, stupor, and weird. They're fairly self-explanatory. In this game, they're not as detailed as they are in Blades in the Dark, where they list who your purveyor would be and where you go to get this. That's up to you to figure out, because you've got a whole system, the Procyon system, as opposed to a single town to choose from. So feel free to get inventive. That you'd like to gamble, but you have a certain gambling house you go to. So that what that means is if you overindulge in your vice, that purveyor is cut off to you, or they completely cut you loose. So you might owe the house too much money, and they're like, nah, no more. Or you have your faith, but you do something and you get excommunicated, or you get shunned from your church for a while or whatever. And these are just things to add a bit of flavor. Stupor is obviously you get high or you get drunk or whatever, and you have a certain guy you go to. These are the things to consider when you're making your character.
I think I already have a good idea of maybe a little bit of a few, but a particular mixture of pleasure and weird, and that he's into alien bitches. Like that's his thing. He likes alien women.
You can have more than one vice.
Yeah, he'll have a few.
Each vice needs a different purveyor, but it's that makes sense. That certainly fits the veteran thing. That's for sure.
The one thing I would just throw my head into the ring on is don't make vice an afterthought in the character concept. Try and find a way of making it something that can occur in a session that could cause problems, that could cause some RP, because that can get you a lot of XP. And I mean, it's just cool because it's showing your character flaws, one of your character flaws, right?
To give you an example, every class has something which they have stuff which is specific to their class when it comes to experience. Every time you roll a desperate action, you get XP in that actions attribute. At the end of each session, for each item below, you roll 1 XP or 2 if it occurs multiple times. So in the case of the muscle, if you address a tough challenge with force or threat, you gain XP up to 2 a session. And then the next one, this is common for everyone, you express your beliefs, drives, heritage, or background. So that's where your heritage sort of matters, your background sort of matters. In your case, background's obvious, it's probably going to be military, and then vice matters. So if you have a session where you go up and you're able to talk to soldiers in such a way that it helps you get into a building, that's displaying your military background, which gets you experience. You know what I mean? Like this is a system that rewards you for playing your character. So these are things you want to be thinking about. Now, have you had a look at the colorful friends on your sheet and had a think about which of those you like the look of?
Now, are they exclusive? I don't imagine they're exclusive to only ones on the sheet. We could come up with something else outside of the sheet. That said, I also haven't looked at the ones on the sheet. I can look right.
You can do, yeah. No, you can come up with other ones. The ones on the sheet are just examples. They're good examples. One of them in yours is a bit weird. It's Krieger, a fine blaster pistol.
Just friends with your own gun.
Yeah, it can be your.
I mean, it'd be like the classic D&D talking sword, you know.
Yeah.
It's a talking blaster pistol.
Or it could also be your enemy in a way, right? Like your nemesis. So every time this pistol turns up, you're like, fuck, I've seen that gun before. Where'd you get that gun? It becomes this recurring thing where it's like you want to go and get the gun. Now, just so you know, all of these characters, your friends list on your sheet, they all exist and you know all of them. There's just one which you're quite close with and one that you is your nemesis effectively. There's someone you're not good with. So these are just things to think about, right? So for those of you at home, the options that Luke has is, which can go either way, is Krieger, a fine blaster pistol, which he can also own, so he can equip it. Shod, a weapons dealer. Chon Zek, a bounty hunter. Yazoo, a crooked cop. Well, that's a weird name. Up the old Yazoo. And Aya, an assassin. So those are the sort of basic options. And like, just send me a rough idea, or just let me know roughly what you had in mind for what those are. They don't need to be anything. You can just leave it blank and I can flesh it out for you. So it'd be really easy for one of these people to turn around and be one of your old buddies. Right. You know, maybe someone else survived everything that went wrong, or there was someone who got kicked out of your unit before they all died and that person's come looking for you, or it could be anything. You know, there's a lot of room there to grow off of. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier, it'd be cool to have one of the other people involved in the explosion have survived, but like they're at odds due to something they learned. I'll think about that a bit more, and then I'll let you know.
Okay. Just quickly jumping back to Charlotte, your vice is luxury, fine wine. Fine wine is your weakness. You like a good fine wine. Do you have a dealer that you go to? Is there a certain place you go to get this stuff? Who's your purveyor?
I feel like if it's a particular fine wine, that is the purveyor.
A
like,
certain brand?
Has to be. It's like a James Bond thing. It has to be a particular. It has to be a Bollinger or whatever. Like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I could just be like, no, it can't just be a fine bottle wine. It has to be Chateau de la Neuvon or something. You know, like.
Okay.
That's an idea.
All right.
Anyway.
You've got a week to come up with an appropriate sounding swanky space wine name, Charlotte.
No problem. I used to manage a fine wine store. I got this.
All right. And next, Sean also hasn't filled out his character sheet at all.
Because I've got character concepts. All I know is that it's going to be a scoundrel because it's a jack of all trades, sort of. Because the way we're doing the show, having a jack of all trades is going to be really super helpful. So a scoundrel, and I was thinking, based upon what Yog's been saying, could go either two ways. Could be he's an intelligence officer from the hegemony, and he's sort of like Captain Willard from Apocalypse Now, if you've seen that film. So it would be post that, but what if he wasn't quite as dysfunctional and hadn't gone completely stark raving, like lost, as cynical, not quite as cynical, right? Like he's given up on the army stuff because he's like, you know, fuck the army, fuck the military, I'm going to go do my own thing. The hegemony is full of shit, so I'm just going to run away, defect, whatever, get out of here, do my own thing. The other idea would be he's not from the hegemony, he's just a ex-militia member from like an outer world that has seen the hegemony coming, and his planet betrayed him or threw him out into the cold, and he's just getting by being a rogue agent. Something like that. One of those two. I'm quite happy with either of them. Pretty nebulous concept, but I think it will work for the crew, just having someone that sort of like has a hand in both the physical side and the support side, because we can't have, we can't all be muscle and we can't all be doctors. And I think,
Okay, so
yeah,
Your first
I'm pretty
idea
lucid.
was interesting, and that when you said
Yeah,
that
I'm-
we could, because my first thought was like, oh wow, could our characters actually get along and be friends? Like I was thinking that if you were part of this military unit, maybe my character was part of the same unit, and we had gotten along. You went to do your own thing. Ghost Dog got wrapped up in this mercenary shit, this private organization, and then rather he was still doing his own thing. Some shit went wrong, and then you maybe had an opportunity for him as joining this crew that we're currently with. You're like, well, if that wasn't working out for you, I got this going on. Like I feel like that could work pretty well.
Because the idea would be like, he would come across you after, like he'd be out of the game, so to speak, but know of like you or your unit and hear about what happened and be like,
Right.
I'm gonna go figure out what's up here, because this sounds, maybe it ties in a little bit, like maybe if we're going the whole Apocalypse Now route, there'd be a world where there was this big Black Ops campaign from a long protracted siege by the hegemony, and I go in to assassinate someone that defected that was causing trouble, Colonel Kurtz scenario, and your mercenary group was supposed to clean up, right? Like the eraser protocol, right? You were to go in and make sure that after I'd killed him, there was no evidence left. And we always used mercenaries for that because of deniability, like false flags,
Right.
all this sort of thing, right? And then maybe, I don't know what your backstory is, like the depths of it, but it could be something like someone decided to erase the erasers at some point, like tying up loose ends. And
Yeah.
I found out about it.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. I mean, I'm pretty flexible in regard to the details there. If anything that would help tie us together better, and I think I would be interested in having our characters have some kind of history so that we got along quite well from the start. A little change of pace from
Be
the
nice
last
not to be
campaign.
sniping at each other throughout a session.
But yeah, I mean, I could work with that. That sounds cool to me.
well, if it
I
makes
think
it
both
easier
ways
for
we
both
can
of
make it
you,
work.
it might make it easier that there has recently been a bit of conflict going on. Basically, with the hegemony, every time someone like arises to whoever's in command, because there's lots of noble houses. There's all these different noble houses, right? And they take turns basically being in command, and it generally happens as the result of like a hostile takeover or a coup. Not completely, like the system still sort of functions, but the noble houses will throw in together and then make a bid to take over, and there'll be sort of infighting and stuff amongst them. And there was a big overthrow relatively recently, like almost a civil war, where a new ruler came in, people stayed loyal to the old one. There was this big back and forth. It's possible you guys could have got tied up in all of that, and
Proxy war, like that would
yeah.
fit so perfectly with this idea of like a Vietnam-esque sort of thing, where there's this proxy war being fought, and it
Yeah.
gets real dirty, which would be my character being like, "Fuck this, this is so dirty, I'm out."
Yeah, well, definitely. Like, you know, for example, there was efforts made to like the relatives and family members of the previous sort of ruler, um, they were like tracked down and killed, right? Like this is a big thing. You know, you removed all people who had a claim to the to rulership. So, um, you know, it's possible that if you felt like you're getting really dirty, you could have been involved in a situation where it's like, hey, here's somebody who they've done nothing wrong. The only thing they're guilty of is being
Existing.
Yeah,
essentially.
being related to the hegemon, the current hegemon, and you know that was it. Somehow they were tied up with the hegemon. Maybe they were a family member, maybe not even a family member. They were somehow taking them out would hurt the hegemon, and then you decided that was too much. Yeah, that was you know, you're a good soldier, but that wasn't soldiering. That was murder. You know, that next step. You know, yeah, because the way it works is you've got the hegemony, which is, you know, you've got this one central power, the hegemon, and everyone else pays a tithe. But like the various systems are run by noble families, and they're more or less self-functioning, and the hegemon endorses them and supports them and stuff. And there is a federal presence, but the various, think of it as like the systems are like the states in America, and they have their own autonomy, but there is a federal oversight going on as well. Think of it like that.
Also sounds
except
like
for it's a
the
bit,
premise of Dune, and also if you
Yeah.
go historical, like the Holy Roman Empire.
yeah, no, it's definitely based on Dune and yeah, those old empires and stuff. That's definitely a thing. So that's something to consider just for your backstory. That maybe I'll leave you guys to come up with the details.
I think the concept's solid, and that the detail working that out is
Yeah.
That's the
Yep.
detail. Luke,
Yeah,
you and I
'cause-
can talk about it.
Cool. I'm digging that. Now, Drake is currently dealing with some issues, so we'll skip him for now.
We can go through the rest of my stuff, like
Yeah, actually,
'cause
yeah.
I think
So have you had any thoughts at all? Like you said, you're still figuring out heritage and background and stuff.
that was
Any
pretty
of
much
that?
the
Yeah.
stuff that'd be the hardest for me to figure out. The special ability that I'm thinking about is I know a guy, because if I've got an intelligence background, that's going to be quite helpful straight off the bat. I get the extra +1 gambit just for picking scoundrel. The only other one I was thinking of was Daredevil, because that looks pretty. That incentivizes taking desperate rolls, which is going to get me extra XP and get me an extra die when I roll on a desperate action, which just looks. Oh, but if I do, I don't get XP. Never mind. I didn't read that.
Okay, so there's a couple of things here I want to discuss for the people at home. There's the basic starting ability for the scoundrel, who Sean's playing, is Serendipitous. Your crew starts with +1 gambit when the pool resets. What a gambit is effectively a reroll. So because of that ability, this party will be starting with 2 rerolls, or you can use them for additional dice, I think, or I have to double check the rules, but it's basically like a get out of jail free token. Sean automatically gives an extra one to the party. Now, what he was just looking at is, I know a guy. When you first dock at a port after being away, pick 1 and ask the GM about a job. It's not deadly. It pays well enough. It's not a rush job. It comes from a faction that you trust, and it targets an enemy that you have. You may spend 1 cred per additional feature. So it basically means that, you know, you arrive in town, you can ask a bunch of questions and get a bit of extra information or whatever. You can use this to find jobs. You can turn up looking for work, and you determine the sort of work you're going to get. You want a job that pays well. You want a job that's not rushed, that sort of thing. You want a job that's not deadly, and you can basically define more and more features about the sort of work you want to find versus the jobs that I offer. Because you get the jobs which are available out there. Obviously, there's certain things you can go out and do, but there's going to be certain jobs on offer. And sometimes the only way, if you want to make some cash, you're going to have to bite off more than you can chew, that sort of stuff. So this gives you a bit of control over that. It's a handy thing to have just from a meta level. And what was the other one? Daredevil. When you make a desperate
but
roll.
I've actually changed like I won't be picking Daredevil. The one that
Okay.
I've actually looked at that I'm like, no, this is really good to pick first, and then get I know a guy second, is Never Tell Me the Odds. That looks really good.
Yes, yeah. You never tell me the odds. You generate gambits on desperate rolls. You may also generate gambits even if you spent a gambit. Now, just so you guys know, to gain gambits in game is every time you make a risky roll, and I'm assuming desperate, it doesn't state in the rules. If you roll a 6, you gain a gambit. So when you're succeeding really well, you gain momentum. Think of it like that.
And normally
this
you can't
one-
gain a gambit on a like. Essentially, if we're talking rerolls, it'd be like saying you can't get another reroll by using a reroll. Whereas this ability
Yeah.
would be like, you can get a reroll off your reroll, so you can make your reroll cost nothing.
Yes.
Which I
If
think
it's a
is
desperate
amazing.
roll.
Yeah.
It has to be a desperate roll. Yeah.
So I think I'm going to take that one first.
All right. Okay, cool.
And I already know my friends. I'm
Okay.
gonna be in trouble.
Let us know who your
I'm gonna-
friends are.
My friend is the info broker, and my nemesis
Okay.
Aura, an info broker, and my nemesis is Nyx, a moneylender. Been caught using
Is it safe to
counterfeit
assume-
money a few too many times. And
Okay.
it's caused
all
him
right.
trouble, and he's like, I'm never lending. I'm not lending fake currency to you ever again. I'm not laundering it through me. Get out of here. Should be like your secret psyops bank account.
Okay. All right. So yeah, you've upset a moneylender. All right, and that has lots of ways for me to make that go bad for you. So I like that. That's a
That's
really
right.
handy one to have. Okay. And Aura is an info broker. They sell you information.
We just have
But
a
they're an old
long
friend, so-
relationship.
Yeah,
Very long.
I'm assuming
relationship.
you've
Maybe it
you've
was my
sold them a lot
first,
of.
like when I joined intelligence, they were intelligence before me, and they like Aura. I'm gonna say it's a she. She trained me up, and then
Okay.
she retired and left, and then she's like, "You need an exit strategy one day, and when that happens, call me." And that day came, and I called her.
Okay. Cool. All right. I'm picking up what you're putting down. So as you can see, these decisions, right? Who your friends are, what your heritage is, your vice, that sort of stuff, what abilities you take, really inform a character. They really do tell a story, right? So I'll give Drake a bit more time. I'm not going to stress him. So let's.
Anyone got any ideas? Well, I'll crowdsource this because this is the one that I thought the least about. Vice. I mean, you guys have heard the character concept. You got any ideas for something that might really fit in that can be played to a lot as a vice? I think it's pretty flexible because it could be. I don't. Stupor is too easy.
Yeah.
I don't really think that's an interesting way of. It's going too much in the same character as Captain Willard, and I'm like, make him different somehow.
Okay then. Well, there's some obvious ones. Gambling makes sense, right? I mean, yeah, gambling's an easy one to shoehorn in. Obligation is the ones I always find the most interesting. I really enjoyed having an obligation when playing Blades. Obligation is like you have someone who you're obligated to. It might be a relative. There's someone who you're providing money, looking after, you're sending money off home to or whatever, something like that. Like there is someone who is important to you. You have a child, a relative, a loved one. Could be a former boss, that sort of thing. That's always an interesting one. I always like seeing obligations in play.
I was thinking obligation too, and I came up with the cop out of I'm obligated to my crew, but that's too crop out. That's
It's a cop out.
it needs to be a separate thing. So I was thinking maybe if we go this route with Ghost Dog and as yet unnamed scoundrel. The obligation could be it'd be like a foreign legion, like ex-foreign legion, right? Like he's obligated to helping ex-soldiers, right? Like defectors, and maybe there's like a very loose organization. It's not a rebel group, right? But it's an organization of back channels amongst ex combat troops, and he's always
I can see
obligated
that
to
being
answer
a
the
thing.
call when it comes. Sort of like an AA, but for.
Well, we have
I guess they have that, right? Like they have a thing for soldiers.
there is
like
an
that, right?
organization here in New Zealand, right, called Grunt Life, which is like a peer support group by grunts for grunts. You could argue you have something like that. They keep an eye out for other sort of, you know, veterans that are going through a hard time.
But it'll be specifically Black Ops. It'll be
yeah,
specifically
within your
Black Ops
community,
stuff.
within your
Yeah.
within that community. Okay.
Because I think that
All
could be
right.
that could be real cool. That could be like Aura was like, call this number when you need an exit strategy and I will come. And that could be a similar thing where I have a whole bunch of people that I'm like, call this number and I will come and get you out.
Okay.
Which
You've
could
got your little
generate
network.
missions for us. That's real.
Yeah.
I really like that idea. I think
That I
that's
do like
great.
that. Now, there is one faction in the game which may or may not interest both of you two, actually. There's a faction called the Lost Legion. Formerly the Hedgeman's personal guard, but rebelled when the current Hedgeman rose to power. Now they work as guns for hire, right? So sort of loyal to the end type who ran off. They currently based out of a dreadnought. They are in your area. They are a faction that it's likely that will be in the same areas as you at some point as you're making your way around the Procyon. They're all branded as traitors. Many of them bear a tattoo of a phoenix, which was the previous Hedgemon's sigil, and is now a sign of rebirth. And they are effectively at war with the hegemony. They are still effectively rebels in a way, not rebels in like a we're going to overthrow and bring freedom and peace for everyone, but more like, you know, bitter Civil War soldiers. How do you feel about them?
What do you think, Luke?
Um,
I'll follow your lead on this one. I've been talking for ages.
So the rebels in what context?
Well, they were loyal to the previous hegemon who died, who was overthrown and defeated by the current ruler, and they're still loyal to that person. So that they're like the sort of guys for whom the war never ended. Now they're effectively mercenaries, but given the chance to have a snipe at some, you know, current sort of government types, they'll take it. You know, think back to, you know, post Civil War South in the West, where you had a lot of these guys who fought on the South side, and for them the war never ended. That sort of vibe, right?
All right.
Jesse James.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a very interesting group of people to have, and Ghost Dog's feelings toward them would be a bit of understanding, in that it's hard to go back to any kind of normal lifestyle, but also thinking they're fucking stupid for remaining so attached, even though he's gone and done something a bit different himself.
All right.
But yeah, any direct involvement, I don't think there'd be like a necessarily positive or negative relationship, maybe something a bit more neutral, where he would expect to butt heads with them sometimes. He thinks they might be a little cuckoo, and if it came to that, you know, then it comes to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like
Alright.
there might have been outreach, and then my character doesn't really want massive ties. Like what he's doing with his obligation would be tie enough. So maybe he has contacts in that regard, and then they're like, "Hey, you should come join us," and he's like, "No, you guys
Yeah,
are
anything-
just another side of the coin." And rebuffed them. So maybe they
Anything
don't
related to like
like it.
structured military, he's like just goes very much over. He's not interested in. That's why this like
Okay.
small crew was something that he was attracted to.
Yeah, I think that
Okay.
works as well. So they're probably more. They're not positive. They'd either be neutral or antagonistic. I think, but
Okay.
I know mechanically in the system how that shape so far would be a -1, which would probably be about as far as I'd be like they're negative. It's just that like, these guys think they're too good for us.
Yeah.
You know.
And I imagine it's very similar. You have similar feels towards other military types, right? In general, even
Organizations,
military
but
on
not
either side.
individuals.
Yeah.
Organizations.
Yeah, that
but
makes
not
sense.
individuals.
You're jaded. I get that. And a lot of veterans end up like that. So that's 100% understandable. Okay. Right. So we have an idea of the sort of characters you two want to play, and Charlotte. We'll get to how Charlotte's related to you guys in a moment. But let's talk to Drake. Drake, have you had any thought about the sort of what sort of character you're wanting to play?
Yeah. Going with the pilot.
Mhm.
One to kind of take care of the ship. But one that kind of is with the crew because he doesn't really ask them questions of what they need done, and they don't ask him questions what happens when he goes away. So, one of those that, loves to travel with them, loves to be in a bind, but at the same time, occasionally gets called away, as we saw 20 minutes ago. So
He's unreliable.
yeah,
Yeah, we get it.
loyal, dependably unreliable. So
Yeah. For those of you at home who might be wondering, the arrangement that we've currently got going with the party is Ryan is probably going to miss about half of the sessions this season. So we've got a revolving door where Drake is whoever's not available that day, because there's a few days that Charlotte will be away. No doubt there's days where others will be away. So we've got one extra player, and we're just going to be rotating them in. So that's kind of what he's getting at by disappearing occasionally.
hopefully not mid-game again.
Yeah.
But that's one where it's I like the idea of being the pilot in that, because that way if there's something land adventurous that they need, he can swoop in or swoop out. And he doesn't like being nailed down. Very, I guess, if we go to the Star Wars references, very Han Solo in the first one.
Yeah.
I'm there for the cash. I'll do something right along the way, but don't be surprised if it's not in my bag of tricks to stick with it.
Okay. Now, I see that your call sign is Bookshelf. What's the story there?
On that one, it's just that if he has a chance to sit and read something while they go traipse on a planet and risk their lives, he'll read a book. So in the cab, he's got tons of books, literally like they're dog-eared, about 10 or 12 pages in before he loses interest. So that's, kind of thing is if he's not flying, he's reading.
I literally already have like the scene in my head of we're on an away mission on a planet. You're in low orbit of this planet, sitting there with your feet up on the center console, toming through some cheap detective Western novel or something. And all of a sudden, on the screen behind you, a red message starts beeping about contacts detected on the scanner or something like that. And then you like taking a sip of coffee or something, and it just goes everywhere, and you're like, I've got to rescue these guys before shit hits the fan.
Either that, or if the beep's going off and I'm just flat ignoring it, and I toggle the shit off because it's a good part of the book.
Master caution. Hit the master caution button.
Okay. All right. Cool. And what's Finn Drake's background?
Well, one, I love the fact the name was so close in the book. I mean, that's when I got to that page. I was like, hey, I'm not even going to struggle on a name here. His background. That's when I was kind of on the fence about. I was trying to read them all. Military, I really didn't see it unless he flunked out. You know, academic, he's not reading in-depth books. Like he said, this is a trashy novel off of a planet that is nowhere close to being an academic book. Maybe some ties with the Syndicate. I was maybe leaning that way, but then I didn't like. Well, I don't want to steal too much, so I was on the things about that, kind of batting him around.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, there's a few things it could be. I mean, yeah. Just quickly looking through all of the various.
I mean,
Unless
if
we
you're a
want to
pilot,
do Noble,
Spacer is the obvious one, right? Like you were born in the void, and that's why you don't like being.
Oh yeah,
tied
for
down.
heritage, yeah, Spacer. I was looking at background.
Background.
Yeah, for heritage, definitely Spacer.
Okay. Yeah, well, there's a few things there. There is this faction in the game that you may have previously been affiliated with called the Echo Wave Riders. Pilots. Many organize illegal races and many take dangerous jobs for pay, and a few test dangerous new engines / flight technologies for the guild. They wear a pin that shows how many races they've won. So that's something that could
I think
fit.
is perfect. I remember reading a little bit about that. That one I was looking at.
Okay. Well, yeah, you wouldn't be like a fully fledged member anymore, obviously, because you're a player character. But yeah, you can be sort of tangentially related to them. You're in their broader group, so that would be Gilda, I guess, on background, or Syndicate. Either of those really work. They both sort of say the same thing. So yeah, it's just there are a bunch of guys that we need a pilot, we need a dangerous pilot, we've got to test something. Maybe you've got a guy that calls you in occasionally and gets you to test some new technology for him. Okay, that's cool. Now special abilities.
I can definitely see something on the ship being installed during a mission and not working right, and blaming that. So.
Now, I see actually you've got a vice down, weird. What's your weird vice? What's this weirdness that you need to indulge in occasionally?
Well, that's where I kind of went with bookshelf. He just has to collect books where he's, on any worlds. We do go on, adventures where everyone's looking at trinkets and all that or other stuff. He's sitting there actually flipping through whatever book or manual or thing he could get a hold of. It's just he's got, almost like he'll leave the girl to grab the book instead.
Okay. Now, can I make a suggestion and to make that fit weird a bit better? Okay. There's this force in the setting, right, called the Way. And that's generally tied to this ancient race that used to be around, whose name currently slips my mind.
I always feel like you just call them the precursors or something.
That's what they are called.
That, right? Okay.
The precursors, yeah. That's them, yeah. And there's all this technology around this old race that used to be around that's now gone. They left behind all this technology. Like the Way is generally thought to have been some technology left over by these precursors. The actual name is called the but everyone calls them the precursors. They're an ancient civilization shrouded in mystery. Though little is known about them, their presence is felt throughout the hegemony, and modern science is built on the discoveries of this lost culture. Archaeologists are unsure what they looked like because some sites are built for beings the size of giants, while others are built for those only a few feet in size. Their language has millions of unique sigils, the meanings of which are hotly debated. There are conflicting theories as to why the disappeared, but the bones of their civilization fuels studies and advancements throughout the hegemony. Now, this technology is everywhere. You've got the bots, sentient robots that are built using old technology. There's the jump gates, which move from system to system. Those are also old, leftover technology. Now, yours is weird. Now, I don't want it just to be like you're into old stuff. That's too pedestrian.
Mhm.
Could it be possible that Bookshelf is a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and
Yes.
he's the guy sitting there, you know, that meme of aliens, right? You're like
Yes.
that about the precursors. You're like, you want to collect all the trashy little Alex Jones style conspiracy theory books you can find everywhere you go. And it's the sort of thing that if people knew it about you, that this, you have this belief that they would think you're a bit of a strange one. Is that something
I
you're
like
interested
that.
in?
I like that
Okay.
because that way it makes sense for reading the books, because instead just for enjoyment, I'm sitting there with a highlighter finding little things that I think are hidden messages, and maybe something in there.
You're going
that,
all Da Vinci Code on it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Da Vinci Code was technically a Louis L'Amour novel. So
Yeah. Okay, and that gives you role play potential too. You can role play the crackpot, you know what I mean, if you so wish. Or but like not necessarily just like a crazy guy, like he's deadly serious. we all know someone who's like that. That's up to you. It's your character, but that's just an idea to consider. I think that fits the background quite well. You come for free with an ability, Ace Pilot. You have a potency on all speed-related rolls. When you roll to resist the consequences of piloting, you gain +1 die. So that's pretty. That means like, any roll you make to do with anything speed-related, obviously, especially when you're helming, you're going to go up potency. So if it's the standard effect, it goes up to great effect. That's fucking handy to have. And when you roll to resist the consequences of piloting, so what this might mean is you fail a roll, you're doing a desperate roll, and I say, well, you failed, so the ship is actually smacking into an asteroid. You might choose to resist it, right? Which is when you roll against stress, you get an additional dice to roll. So the way resisting goes is you choose the broad attribute that you're rolling against. You count how many different skills in that one you've got. So let's say it's prowess and you've got helm and scrap, right? So that would be 2 dice to resist. You roll both, and then you deduct the highest dice off 6, and that is how much stress you take. So if you roll a 6, you take no stress. Now, this would give you an extra dice. So let's say I say, well, you hit the boulder, and you're like, no, I want to resist. You get an extra dice, you roll that extra dice, so in total that would be 3 dice or whatever, and then that gives you a higher chance of reducing your stress. So you were going to hit the boulder, but old Bookshelf here got pretty handy with the controls and managed to dodge, and it got close. He scraped the paintwork, but he got through. So that's a handy thing to have. Have you thought about what other abilities you want to have? You get one other.
One other. That where I was looking at side job would actually make more sense with coming in and out.
Okay. So side job, you may spend a downtime activity in port doing odd jobs, and you gain 1 credit. If there are rumors floating about, the GM will tell you of them. So yeah, that makes sense. You make a bit of extra money on the side. You're coming back with rumors. That's a handy thing to have. Yeah. Okay, that's pretty cool. And lastly, your fast friends. Have you got an idea of these guys, who you get along with and who you don't?
I've gone back and forth on this one quite a bit. I'm leaning towards the fast friend, good one being, of course, Triv, the ship mechanic, just to repair any damages we might do, or knowing someone who can fix it.
Yep. It's always handy to have.
And the one not getting along with too well, I've bounced between the professional racer, and the scoundrel. I can't tell if I screwed someone over in a race, which is why I've left Echo, or if I screwed someone up on a job.
Either works.
Mm-hmm.
They both work. Yeah.
The scoundrel,
with what we discussed, But what we discussed with your character being potentially like a test pilot and a racer, you went with that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
What about the guy that you always beat or you always lost to?
That could
'Cause
easily
that
be
would be
Choss.
that's the argument for the racer, right?
Hmm.
You could be convinced too that the Choss used some old technology to get the upper hand, and he cheated you, and you tried to out him.
Exactly.
Here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, he cheated you. You're convinced he cheated you. You tried to out him, and that's what got you kicked out of the organization because they're all like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa!" You know, like you don't go on someone else's ship and dig around in their stuff. Like like this is. And you're like, yeah,
Yep.
full tinfoil hat mode. Like, no, he's got this thing. This Urbot did this thing, routed this thing.
Yep.
That works. Okay,
Exactly.
all right, cool. Okay, so we're starting to get a bit of character vibe now. How did Bookshelf? And this is also the question for Celeste as well. How did you two? We already know how Ghost Dog and our nameless man got in touch with each other. How did you two fit in? How did this crew come together?
I could actually see, getting paid enough to take one of Stitch's operations to where they needed to be, or dropping off some of her donators, to use the term loosely.
Those priority donator transports.
Yes. And Bookshelf has no problem with it because she had the creds
Pays well.
and he had the ship space. Yeah. It's not like they can't stack. The bodies, need to be comfortable when they're sitting.
And maybe if like a part of that background said that they do testing, they test pilots, right? Maybe you helped test some Black Ops kit, and that's how you got to know one of the others, and that's how they brought you in. It might be Sean's character or something. Sometime you helped test some gears that they were using, some Black Ops ship or something. Test didn't go too well, nothing came of it. But regardless, you impressed upon him your pilot abilities, and he kept you around.
I think maybe there's a double link because I think with Drake being a come and go character, it would make sense for him to be not as tied to our character. It'd be more like we need a pilot, and Celeste's like, I knew this pilot. He did this thing for me. And then I'm like, wait, I recognize that name. Yes, he is a good pilot. Let's get him. There was this operation we did, and I remember reading about his reports and why we had to do it. That sort of thing. I can see it being more like a tangential linkage to start with.
Okay. And how did Celeste get to know our two Black Ops buddies?
I think that wouldn't be pretty easy. I mean, if they get shot up and need help, if they're in a place where they're not, where it's not overly friendly, depending on what their motivations were at the time, they could have been people that she would have been inclined to help.
Luke, your character backstory involved you blowing up a bunch of your buddies and nearly getting blown up yourself, right?
Yeah, that could be an interesting tie-in. Basically, it was a ship explosion, and by some miracle, he was floating amongst the wreckage, a body like half frozen, almost guaranteed dead, but was brought back. It's possible maybe you could have found him, or been part of the response team that was sent to the wreckage and helped patch him up.
Maybe like it was out in the middle of nowhere. It was just the local equivalent of the National Guard came and responded to the ship explosion, found this guy, brought him back. He needed a couple of organs to keep going. Both his kidneys were shot, and so was his liver, and a couple of them were replaced mechanically, but Celeste happened to source one
Have one or two on ice.
on ice.
Yeah.
Okay, this works. Okay, cool. All right, and we'll worry about Ryan's character when Ryan's around. He's playing a bit of an odd job, come and goes, strange, mystical type character. So we'll worry about that when he's around. Now, the big questions. There's obviously a bit more sort of character creation you guys need to do. You need to assign stats, stuff like that, on your sheets as well. Obviously, we've come up with a background as to your various your old friends and what your background is. Just write some stuff in notes, just flesh them out a bit while you remember, or feel free to flesh them out some more. Just quick bullet points or basic notes, just to give us an idea of why that particular character does what they do. Sean, why does your tab keep moving around our character sheet? I keep moving it with all the other players and it keeps moving.
I don't know. I was just moving the original scoundrel tab to where it was supposed to be, so I don't know what it's doing.
Okay.
I think it's like there's a sync issue, probably. We'll worry about it later. Not that big a deal.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so the next bunch of questions we need to do is we need to create the details for your ship. So in your own time over the next week, you flesh out the rest of your attributes, you flesh out the rest of the stuff you need to do. Your ship, it's a Cerberus class vessel. Now, we're going to start in media res. You don't currently have the ship. You're going to get it in the first adventure as part of a prison break. But because you're going to be stuck with it, we need to know the details. So we'll figure those details out now. We're determining the ship you're going to find. So this is a bit of a spoiler for the next session. But this is the ship you will find when the time comes. We needed to come up with a reputation. Now, everyone already agreed on daring. So your crew, which currently doesn't have a name, you're welcome to come up with a name if you want, is known for daring raids, daring bounties, doing things which pretty fucking cocky, and pulling it off, or at least doing a pretty good job. Reputations can be added over time. So as we play, things happen, we'll get more reputation coming. You might end up being brutal, whatever, things will happen that will...
Or you'll lose a reputation.
Or you can lose it. Yeah, you start saying no to too many daring raids, and people start going, well, I didn't know you're a bunch of pussies. This is
what happened
a
to you
thing
guys?
that can happen.
You used to be sharp. You used to have an edge. Now you're blunt and soft.
Exactly. And that stuff matters because, again, we come back to XP. One of the things that gets your ship XP is you bolstered your crew's reputation or you developed a new one. So the stuff matters, right? So do we have a current designation for your ship? Has anyone got a cool name they want to propose for the ship? Because if you don't, I'm going to randomly generate it during the week.
We can talk about it.
I like Cerberus.
Unless someone... You like Cerberus? The Cerberus?
Is that what
it's
it is?
Cerberus, the Cerberus class vessel. Well, Cerberus is the class of vessel, right? Like it's... Yeah.
If my
A Hound of Hell.
Something,
You just call it Hellhound.
He'd name it after like the operation he was on that made him be done with, right? Like it'd be that sort of thing, so that those that would.
That's very Firefly.
Is it?
That's
I've not
the
seen
whole...
Firefly.
In Firefly, their ship's called the Serenity, which was the planet that they were fighting on when the Civil War ended. So
No, it's the Serenity Valley.
Yeah, that's right. They're in the Serenity Valley battle, which was more of a massacre, and that's when the rebels were beaten and defeated the Browncoats. So they named the
So what
ship
you're
after
saying
it.
is, if I was born earlier, I could have come up with Firefly.
Yes.
Exactly.
It's your fault that you were born in time. We'd have a second season if it wasn't for you, Sean. Thanks.
Yeah.
Born too late, mate. Born too late.
Okay, we don't need to come up with a ship idea, but I will say this: if you haven't agreed on a name in chat by like my Friday, I'm going to randomly generate one, and you'll discover it in play. And it's not going to necessarily be very cool. You might end up on the
You know
old,
what?
you know,
Let's just go with that. Let's do that. We'll have you randomly generate it.
I was thinking we could
We'll
call
come
it
up with it
Bob.
because what we did with the Blades group is they didn't have a name until after the first session, because the first session they thought they were. This is the whole thing. You go in thinking you're one thing, and then you play a session and you find out you're not that at all. They went in thinking they were super great, sneaky infiltrator types, and at the end of the session, they'd blown up an entire city block. Which isn't.
I did that. I did.
So they ended up
That was
being
my
called
idea.
the Powder Cake Boys.
And last week I blew up a parade by accident. I've stuck to the theme, is what I'm saying.
Was it really blowing up? It was more like a pyroclastic flow.
I melted them.
Yes, you Pompeii'd them.
Yeah.
Pompeii'd them.
Okay, we'll worry about that. All right, we won't worry about the colors and the look. Again, we'll do a similar thing. You're welcome to think of stuff over the week. Otherwise, we'll discover it live, as it were. Now, I need to quickly just pull up the notes for
We had to pick
Black,
abilities
white,
and upgrades and things for it.
So now we need to discuss what you customize your ship. So the ship starts with 2 credits in its hold, which I've already added, and a few pre-selected ship subsystems. So currently you start automatically, because it's a Cerberus class vessel, it's a bounty hunter's vessel. You start with long range scanner, so that allows you to scan stuff within your star system. Basically, not across the whole thing. You can't scan everything, but a fair distance. You get several light seconds worth of scanning range, which is substantial. You have a jump drive, which allows you to get around quite quickly. And then it comes with a brig, which is what it sounds like. You have bonuses in training your prowess. So that means between sessions, you get downtime actions. And one of those downtime actions you can do is train prowess. And you get XP in your prowess, which once you've maxed out those 6 boxes next to prowess or any other, whatever stat you're training, once you've maxed that out through XP or training, you can then spend 1 point into one of the other stats, right? Within that category. If you normally, when you do downtime training, you get 1 XP to put towards that thing. But if you train prowess within the ship, you go up to 2. So it's a handy thing to have if you want to get better at your prowess.
Inside the ship.
Effectively, you've got a gym. Yeah. So yeah, actually, you always start with 2 gambits because Sean's character. So that's what you currently start equipped with. You've got a long-range scanner, a jump drive, a brig, and a gym currently. And at this point, those are technically upgrades, so we've jumped ahead of ourselves. At this point, you can choose to customize 2 additional ship systems. So what you can customize is your broader systems, which are engines, hull, comms, or weapons. Or you can increase crew quality, but it will cost you 2 cred instead. So currently your crew quality is 0, it's flat, and this is what determines how good you are against other things. So if you go up against like someone with quality of 3, you're well out of your league. Think of it as like a level, right? So you can bump your quality up 1 if you want and spend those 2 credits, or you get to put an extra point into either engines, comms, weapons, or hull. You can do that twice.
And what are these
And this is-
the points in engines, comms, weapons do? Like, I can see the upgrades under them, but what do the actual individual points do? What does that dictate?
Effectively, like it's the same as having a stat in that particular thing. If you're rolling, that's like your quality, to use terms that you're used to. So you've increased your quality by a point, which means you get an additional dice roll when you're rolling on it.
So if I'm looking at the sheet right correctly, then our comms can have a max quality of 8.
Yep.
Okay. That's a lot of dice. All right.
Yeah. Also, those upgrades, they determine how effective your various other upgrades are, right? So as you increase that, and you install like a Nexus link or something, it makes those more effective. The more upgrades you have, the more of those sorts of things you can have. I'd have to double check the rules to be sure on that, but that's my understanding anyway from a quick read. So you get 2 free upgrades, or you can improve your crew. Would you rather improve your crew or your ship?
Do we think we're going to be doing more away missions or on-ship missions?
I feel like
Like a
more
bit of
away
both, eh?
missions,
Hmm.
but it's hard to say.
For bounty hunting, it's gonna be
Crew
away
means
missions.
all the individuals. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking it's going to be away missions.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Crew would make sense then, because then that's all the stuff that we do as individuals. We do with, we're not rank amateurs. Like our stuff isn't,
We're not
our
hacks.
armor and our clothes and our weapons aren't complete junk. They're like standard stuff. So that would cost us 2 creds, correct?
Is that yeah? Like the most well-rounded option seems most appealing, and that seems like a pretty well-rounded option.
Okay. All right, so we scrap your 2 credits, and you've gone up a crew level. So you're generally a better crew. You're more well known. That's handy. Makes you more badasses. Saves having to upgrade you as we play. So we've done that. Now, when you choose your upgrade, the GM will tell you about a faction that helps you get those improvements, and they did you a favor. How did you respond? Did you pay them off, give them one credit in exchange for it? No, because that's a crew upgrade, so we don't worry about that. That's not a problem. Now we get to choose a special ability. All right, so the special abilities that are available to a Cerberus class vessel are licensed, take -2 heat on any legitimate bounty hunting jobs. Your ship can carry particle weapons, and your crew can carry and legally use heavy blasters in the pursuit of a target. On the trail, your crew gains an extra downtime activity for work on long-term projects or acquire assets to track bounties. So sometimes between sessions you have a clock which you have to work at in order to unlock assets to help find people, stuff like that. That makes that easier. The other one is helping with heat. Every time you do a job, it's going to generate you heat, which is bringing you to the attention of the authorities, because you guys aren't operating strictly legally. Light touch, you gain potency when trailing a target or when gathering info at a target's previous location. So that means that you're better at following people without being seen. You're better at finding information. That sort of suits some of your backgrounds, actually. Snatch and grab. When you use a deception, infiltration, or social plan, that what that means is the type of job you agree to do at the start. When you're planning on what you're doing, there's a broad list of different plan types, and you state which is the one that you're going for, and it will be social or whatever, deception, infiltration, combat, things like that. If you do those 3, so if what you're doing is a deception, so that's like lying your way into a job, you're trying to lie through and con somebody to help you out, or an infiltration, you're sneaking in, or a social plan, you're generating public support, whatever, to execute a kidnapping or extraction. So when you're getting somebody out, bounty, whatever it is, you get +1 dice to your engagement roll. Your engagement roll is what determines how the session starts, whether you start in the strong's position or a weak position. So that's the sort of thing that can make your life a lot easier, for bounty hunter adventures, effectively. There's loaded for beer. Your crew can carry +1 load. and you have a distinctive and high quality armor. When you wear armor, it counts as heavy armor. So what that means is you can carry more gear. You know how we said at the start that you have a load, you can carry 4 items, 5 items, or 6 items. This allows you to automatically carry an extra item without it being obvious, and you have high quality armor, which means you can resist more damage. It makes you a bit more resilient in combat, and it means that you're going to always have more equipment to draw on, which is handy to have. And then there's play both sides. When you release a bounty target, you make them a crew contact. Handy to have. You don't trade the guy in for the money, but he owes you a favor. And then deadly. Each crew member may add 1 action rating to command, scrap, or skulk. So you get better at one of those 3 things. So that being said, what you guys get a special ability, which you can get more later. You level this up and you can unlock this stuff, but for now you get to choose one. So what do you want to go with?
I'm feeling snatch and grab right now to start with.
Okay.
But
A lot of those sounded really cool. I feel like that one that let us follow people sounded most appropriate, like the radar or whatever. But
potency,
when you said
touch.
the one about having heavier armor and like an extra inventory slot, when you first brought up inventory slots, I'm like, oh, there's this Mary Poppins bag sounds wonderful. I can just like say, like, oh, I pull out my grenade and I pull out my harpoon, and you're just like, what the fuck? Like, I can have anything I want. So
you have a thing
that's the
for
sexiest
everything.
trait to me. Yeah.
You're loaded for bear. You have whatever you need at all times.
I love it.
I
Yeah.
mean, we will probably get a lot of these.
Yeah. I think
Yeah, you
the
unlock
starting
them.
one should be like, I think the tracking one is the most appropriate to start with because that's kind of our thing, you know.
Light touch, gain
Yeah.
potency when trailing a target when gathering info.
Maybe.
Okay.
You gotta
that's my
find the
opinion, at
target,
least.
and you find the critical point. Like that fits with the Black Ops thing, right? Like you're smart about. You go after a big target, but you're smart about it. You do your homework. You know, you find them where they're weak. You don't find them where they're strong. You don't, do stupid things. I would agree with light touch. I mean, all of these.
Well, my
All these
touch
are
also
good.
can transfer to the ship as well because whether you're on the ground or whether we're tracking them in space, as long as we're tailing them, there's lots of ways that can be translated to. So
Yeah.
Charlotte?
Well, like an example that we've seen in Star Wars again is when the Millennium Falcon thinks it's being clever sticking to that Star Destroyer, and then it flies off thinking, yeah, we got away, and then you see Slave One pulling behind it. It's like, that's an example of that. That's like, hey, you think you're clever, but this is what we do. We track people. That's 3 votes. I haven't heard from Charlotte. You're being really quiet, Charlotte. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just listening to everything else. In normal fashion, I'll go against what everyone else is saying, except for Yogg. Licensed or loaded for bear? Licensed is at the top for a reason. The way that they had that, the way that these character sheets are set out, is the most practical skill to start with is at the top. So particle cannons are one of the more powerful weapons in the game for a ship. You cannot get that unless you're licensed.
The problem.
So there's
that. No.
Legally.
You can get it. It's just illegal to have it. That's the difference.
This lets us operate within the skirts of the law a little bit more. So we're not as likely to catch shit from anybody else.
What I'm hearing is that Charlotte's a goody two-shoes.
The problem
Yeah.
I have with taking licensed first is it sort of forces you to take the particle cannon upgrade. Because taking
So
it
right now we're
first
unarmed.
without- No, we have crap weapons. Like we have weapons.
You
we just
got
don't
yeah.
have-
you
Our
have
ship
basic
does
weapons.
not have weapons.
It's got 1 tick in weapons.
Yeah. No, you,
Yeah, what,
you
a
effectively have
harpoon?
weapons. Just got basic shit, right? That's kind of the idea. Yeah.
You
I
can
mean,
always
again,
do
I
a
have
thing.
to-
just because you don't have for instance, we have nothing in engines. That doesn't mean we don't have engines. It means we have crap engines,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So we have all of these things. It's just how good they are. Like we have
Yes.
really good comms. We have okay weapons, and we have crap engines.
And crap shields.
Do we have? Oh,
But
a
those
great
can all
crew.
get better over time. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the most
They
important
can.
part. I kind of like
that's
the
the
idea
that's
of
the only
like
problem.
if the theme is like being outlaws, like not being licensed. I wouldn't mind getting licensed through like a story element as the game progresses and getting the access to these weapons as the game progresses. Like I
That's
think that'd be
fair.
a cool narrative element to like pick that up along the way as opposed to like just starting out licensed. That's just me. Like I could
No,
go
that's
either
fair.
way, honestly.
The
I mean,
way I
and
would
Loaded
look
for
at it-
Bear is kind of neat.
I like all of them. The problem is with license. Like I want license for the -2 heat, but that's not interesting, right? Like I want it for the -2 heat on any legitimate bounty hunting jobs. There's already a thing. You don't always get the -2 heat. I think it would be cool for it to be a driving thing where we get a particle weapon. Like God, we need better weapons. We need better weapons. Get a particle weapon. Oh crap! We need to get this licensed. You know?
Mhm. Yeah, have it be very
Maybe that's
story
just me,
driven.
but because otherwise,
Yeah.
otherwise I would want to take licensed if we were getting particle weapons straight off the bat. But we've decided on getting crewed at tier 1, which means we don't have half of what.
You still hold on. Just so you know, you will be able to choose 2 more upgrades. Yeah, you get 2 more
we put it
upgrades,
in
which
like
aren't like, yeah, they're not your total like engine hull comms. These are specific upgrades. So that's the next step as a sign upgrade. So that's when, like, you, for example, the brig is used as an example of an upgrade. So you get to pick 2 more, and you can pick
And
any
they
2
can be-
boxes, but be aware that some, like shields, cost 2 upgrades in order to select. And then once you assign them, you have the 2 factions are impacted by your choices.
Okay. So we could still get particle
Yeah.
weapons. Ooh, man.
You can still get particle weapons. Yeah.
They're all so good. I feel like we might have to just leave it to a die roll.
Well, I mean,
In
I
true
can
fashion.
eat. Yeah, we'll let Fantasy Grounds decide. Yeah, that works so well for us.
Great.
'Cause I can go
I'm
either
willing
way
to.
between-
Okay, so the options we're looking at are light touch, licensed, and loaded for beer. Are we correct? Or are you wanting to roll off on all of them?
I will drop licensed and go all in for Loaded for Bear.
Okay.
I mean,
Are
if
the-
we're
are
already
there-
a step above, then having distinctive and high quality armor would not be unseen for us.
We got the good shit.
Mhm.
Okay. So
Yeah, I like loaded for bear.
loaded for beer and light touch. Is there anything else we're rolling for? I'll do the roll, that way you guys don't blame each other for this. So we've got 2 options. Want to add a third? Any advocating for a third option? Okay.
No, I think we're all good with
All right,
loaded
then.
for bear.
So roll once for each, and the one that gets highest gets it.
Okay. All right.
That way
Then.
it's
We'll
like-
do it that way.
It's rolling for us as opposed to one being a 1, 2, 3. It's like whichever rolls highest is the one we take.
Okay. And I'll roll a
'Cause
d20,
that's
eh?
luck. That's building good
I'll
luck.
roll. Okay.
We take
So
the one
first
that
things
rolls
first. We're rolling for light touch, and we're going for the highest roll. So light touch is a 4. It's not looking good. And this next one's loaded for beer. They've both got 4. So-
Wow.
Okay. All right. We'll
Of
do
course
it
it
again.
would be a
Sean.
tie.
Let's I'll do it with
I
the
mean,
d6
Liam,
this time.
you could break a tie, I guess. if you want.
I'm just going to do a
If you-
D6 on an even. We're going light touch, and on an odd, we're going loaded for beer. All right. Odd, loaded for beer. There you go.
Excellent.
So you automatically get +1 to your load. So what that means is you've got these 3 tiers of load, right? Light is you're just dressed up in regular clothes. People look at you, this looks like you're going out to go get some stuff from the shops. You can move quicker. You're not drawing attention to yourself. Normally that lets you have 3 squares worth of items. You now get 4. Normal is you're going to work. You know, you've got a jacket on, you're a bit more thickly dressed, but you're not overly dressed. Yeah, you're just normal, right? You're not drawing attention to yourself, but you can only carry 5, now 6 items. And then there's heavy, which is you're clearly up to no good. You know, you're wearing armor, you've got gear on, you've got, you know, pouches and shit on. You look like you're off to have a fight, right? That is something which is still true, but now that gets 6 items. So that's a decision you have to make at the start of every session. So yeah, there's that. That's something to consider now. All right, but you now get +1 to all of that. So just remember that in general you've got more load than you previously would. Okay, so next step, we get to choose.
We're getting there.
We're getting there. We've got 3 more steps to go. Assign upgrades. Right, so each ship starts with the pre-selected upgrades well suited to the crew, such as a galley for the Star Dancer or a brig for the Cerberus. In addition to those upgrades, hey, ready to roll, how's it going? In addition to those upgrades, pick 2 more details on the following handouts that you can pick any 2 boxes, but be aware that some, such as shields, cost 2 upgrades and all this is leaked. After you assign your 2 upgrades, the GM will tell you about 2 factions that impacted your choices, and then we'll get to that in a moment. So, have a look at your ship. You've got all those squares there to choose from. There's a lot of stuff there to choose. What sort of upgrades do you want to see have? Like, you know, you get this isn't like your basic broad comms or engines, whatever. This is your Nexus link, your grappling hooks, your particle cannon, AI module, armory, so on and so forth. What do you want to see on the ship? If you have questions about any of them, just ask and I can tell you what they are.
I sort of feel like if we're doing, you do, Drake.
Is that everything under the auxiliary, the ship gear, and all that we're looking at?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Everything that's a square.
Wow.
So that's under. You've got grappling hooks, particle cannons, Nexus link, all that stuff under auxiliary, ship gear, crew gear, all that stuff. That's all choosable. So, for example, there is Land Rover, right? That's a vehicle that you can land and drive around in on the surface. Shuttle is handy to have. Yeah, you've got a vault where you can lock your stuff away that lets you hold on to more money. All sorts of things. There's a lot there that's kind of handy to have.
Hooks, particle cannons.
Yeah. Under crew gear, where it says land transport, that's not a Land Rover. That's like a jet bike. You get your own jet bike or something to blast around on the surface versus having this big buggy, you know, stuff like that.
I feel like stuff to help on an away mission is probably what we want to get. I mean, particle cannons could be cool just because the impetus drives us towards getting licensed, and it's like an ace in the hole for Drake to rain orbital bombardment when I press a button like, hey, we need orbital bombardment on this grid square, and then he like fires a particle cannon down. That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of won me over the moment you said having like a deployable motorcycle, though. Like I can't vote for anything else now.
If we took land transport, can it be everybody has a speed bike?
Yeah.
To,
There's one for everyone. If you pick land transport, there is enough bikes that when you land, you've all got your own wheels to blast around on, basically.
That's fucking awesome to me. I can't turn that down.
I mean, if someone's really feeling something, we just got to take it. So I think.
Well, you don't have to. But
I mean,
I
feel like
cinematic
Drake would
for me,
love
so
that.
Kind of.
His character would love that too, right?
Land transport would be a kick on land missions for me too. So, but I gotta admit too, I'm also looking at the med bay, and I know we've got a dock, but I'm thinking how much injured this party gets because of Fantasy Grounds. Not us, of course. Fantasy Grounds always hurts us. I'm thinking, patch us up might be good too.
It's true.
Oh wow! Actually, hold on. Personal vehicles,
Narrative.
a sleek single-seater craft that can fold up tight enough to fit into a reasonable parking space, limited fuel, but can break atmo, can carry basic weapons though they can't seriously damage anything freighter-sized or larger. You may want a landing bay. Costs 2 upgrades instead of 1. Yeah. So that's what personal vehicles is, which is an option for the Cerberus. That's what they mean by land transport as personal vehicles.
So it's 2. It's a 2 upgrade cost, not 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in for the medical bay for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
I'm here to
I
make
guess
sure
we've
that you
gotta
guys
get
are able to
land
go it
transport
again.
Eventually.
Yeah, I mean, we can get these upgrades through as we progress, so it's not a huge deal to me either way.
There's a few the upgrades in the book are slightly different to what we've got on the sheet. Yeah.
I copied the sheet exactly. It's not my fault.
No, hold on. I just realized. No, I was looking at cruise ship upgrades over to the right there where it said personal vehicles. I was reading the wrong thing. That's my bad. I'm sorry. For land transport, is land-based transports for the entire crew. Tires or close-to-ground hover. They may be motorized bikes, land skimmers, boats, or very small cars. So yeah, they're your jet bikes. If you want to go for your personal vehicles, that's like a shuttle in a way, or like basically a fighter, really.
I mean, can we do the personal vehicles and the medical bay? It's one in piece, right?
Personal
Yeah,
vehicles is 2, but if you're talking about the land transport, that's 1. See on the
Yeah, I'm
right-hand
talking
side
about the
where it
land
says cruise
transport.
ship. Okay. Yes. We can
Yeah,
do that.
medical bay is a clean room with medical equipment, no hospital, but sufficient to patch up most injuries. Storage for drugs and medical scanners. You add +1
And
die
organs.
to recovery rolls. Yeah,
That's cool. That's good.
yeah.
I feel like that's really
handy.
nice to have. Yeah.
The extra die to recovery is huge. Trust me. Okay. All right then. So then medical bay, and you want to go land transport?
The thing about
Okay.
the thing about the sci-fi and this stuff is like in the Blades, you look at the upgrades and you're like, eh. But in the this, it's like, I want all of those. Those are all cool.
Yes.
They're all cool.
Which is good. It's good to have
It's
those
great.
choices.
Yes.
Well, I really want to build to the personal vehicles because it reminds me of the old anime a long time ago that had everyone had a different car or whatever that jumped into the ship. And I'm just thinking towards episodes 15, that'd be great, flying over you guys and your vehicles just pull into the big car. So
Yeah, I want to double check the weapon things, but I'll do that after the session because you've got points in weapons, but there's some. The piece of paper I was just looking at say most non-military weapons ships aren't armed, so I'll have to double check that. But it seems likely you've got weapons, just nothing that can harm anything larger than a freighter, really. That's all right.
I sort
I'll
of
double
see
check
it as we have enough weapons to like disable a ship for boarding, not blow it up.
Potentially, yeah. I'll double check that to be sure, but regardless, that's all right. Okay, and now the next step, we're nearly there, team, is favorite contact. You take a look at your contacts and take a look at your list of potential contacts on the ship sheet. Although all the contacts are your friends and allies, one is closer to the crew than the others. Choose one contact who is a close friend, long-time ally, or partner in crime. The GM will tell you about 2 factions that are impacted by your choice. All of these things are it's like factions that are impacted by your choice. I'm holding off until we've got all this information, and then I'll update it over the week. So
Because it's
I'll have a
annoying
look
having
at the
to come up
factions
with it
and-
on the spot.
yeah, I'm trying to think. I'll think of some good ones that actually make sense and will tell an interesting
I
story.
had this problem too.
I think we were all leaning towards Stacey Weathers in one way or another.
The Ace Reporter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, even Ryan had her down, I believe.
Fucking Ninja Turtles over here. I don't
I think
think
this
I
is one
read,
that we just give to Ryan because he's not here. So if
Yeah.
he wanted the ace reporter, this is the bone we throw him because he's not here.
Well,
Yeah.
these people are all your friends, right? It's just that one of them's much closer. So I'll go through the options for the people at home. We have Stacey Weathers, ace reporter, who I guess the idea is that she can give you leads. She knows what's going on. She hears rumors. Or can also generate rumors or whatever for you as well. Arlox and Ashen Knives Pasha. The Ashen Knives are assassins, so it's an assassin. Ishi, a weapons dealer, self-explanatory. Lix, a Xeno tracker, self-explanatory, and Jizri, a fixer. I mean, the odd one out is definitely the reporter.
I mean, we already have our own Xenos tracker on board, and that's Ghost Dog. He has a thing for Xenos women, so he has contacts into the Xenos races, right? So
He lands. Yeah, we're close.
only on Encounter Roleplay After Dark.
So
Crimson Itch all over again, Liam.
yeah. No, let's not. Let's choose an option here. So yeah, reporter, assassin, weapons dealer, Xeno tracker, and fixer.
I think we're all. I mean, I thought the reporter was cool just for propaganda reasons, for helping reduce heat. We give the first report of what happened, and that in a system that information travels at the speed of light. Having the first report out does a lot of good.
I didn't think of that. That's a good point.
That's
Heat is a big thing in this
legitimately the
game.
reason why I wanted it.
Yeah.
Is
Heat is
travel
big in this
time
game,
for
right?
reporting.
So for those of you who are new, heat is something which you'll accrue, and then when you get it's dependent per star system, but once you go over a certain level of heat, you go up a wanted level, and the only way to get rid of wanted level is to do time. All right, like you can get rid of heat, but you have to do time, and the higher that heat is, the higher that wanted level is, the worse the time gets. If you get up to wanted level 4 or 5, the military is looking for you at that point. Like, you have really upset some big people.
So it's like Grand Theft Auto.
Yes.
You either get arrested or you get killed.
Yeah, there's no going to the spray shop in this game.
Well, there
We'll
is,
see about
but
that.
that's when you're reducing the heat, not
Yeah,
the
yeah, heat.
Going
Yeah.
to the spray shot is reducing the heat. The wanted stars don't go down unless somebody goes to jail. It doesn't have to be a member of the crew, but somebody has to go to jail.
Yeah, okay.
And having an
So-
ace reporter can help spin it so that it's not one of us.
Exactly.
I would like
And they
to
can also
rename
give you
her though
leads
to
and things.
April O'Neil. We got to rename her.
Okay, so I know Plague was keen on the reporter. It sounds like we've got Sean keen, Charlotte keen. What about you other two?
That's fine. It works for me.
We'll go with that.
Okay. All right. Okay. Right. And then we update ship info, which is calculate your upgrade cost, starting gambits, blah, 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 blah. We'll handle all of that off camera. I'll take care of that this week. I'll get a sit down and I'll do all of the GM facing stuff I need to get done. So that is our creation stuff done. Is there anything we're wanting to discuss before we kick into it? Do you have any more questions regarding rules, setting, information? As I've already established, you'll be starting the next session in jail, and it will be a breakout. Just so you've got a week to think about interesting things. You're in a space jail somewhere, like a holding pen, and you've been thinking about getting out for a while, and the only thing that stopped you from getting out is that you don't know when a ship is on site or not. You haven't been able to find out the pattern of the ships arriving. And then one quite important prisoner, whose name and details I haven't calculated yet, happens to arrive on the vessel, and he knows he's being transported off prison at a certain time, and he comes to you with a bargain. I can get you the ship you want. There'll be a ship here to move me at this time. If you help me escape, I'll owe you a favor. And this is a guy that you want to escape. 2, the sort of guy you want to have owing you a favor. I'll figure out the details once I've figured out where you guys sit with the various factions. But that's going to be the situation, that you're sitting in there. Think the first Guardians of the Galaxy. You're sitting in this prison. You've come up with a plan to get loose, but you're in the middle of space. So you just need a ship, and there's no ship on the you don't know. They've built this prison in such a way that you don't see when the ships are coming and going, but you've got a plan in place. You're ready to go, and this guy's like, hey, in 3 days' time, I'm being moved to Supermax. I don't want to go to Supermax. They're going to have to send a ship to move me. And there's your chance. So feel free to get creative.
That was pretty nice, actually, to be honest.
Three hots in a cot. We're good.
So feel free to get inventive. Now, obviously, when it comes to load, there's going to be certain mechanics of this game which won't be readily available straight away. You're not going to be like, right, I'm in the galley at the prison. I'm sitting here minding my own business. Now pull out my sniper rifle, right? Like it's going to have to be.
Where did you keep that?
Hey, Liam, guess where we start? We start in the station armory.
Yeah.
That's our engagement role, is in the ship's armory with our kit.
Potentially. That's going to have to be a part. You're going to have to get your gear, then you're going to have to get to the dock, and then you're going to have to get out of the docking bay and away from the prison. How you do that is up to you. There's going to be a chance for everyone to shine. It could be sneaky beaky. You might start a riot and then get out under the riot. You might go full fucking carnage and just hack your way out. The floor is yours. Feel free to get as inventive with this as you want to. Don't have to worry about too much about planning it. We'll discuss it and start it straight away next session. So all of that being said, I'm glad we got to work this stuff out, because it was actually quite complex and it would have been impossible to do this via text. Does anyone have any more questions? Do you have anything you want to go through? Anything like that?
Well, I figured out the name of the fine wine that my vice will fall into.
Okay, all right.
Mimetic gravitas is what it's called. It is a wine that comes from Mem, M-E-M. It is a planet in one of these systems. And that specific planet is not coming up. I lied about everything. Oh, no, wait, here we go. A lot of references. Let me find this. It's around here somewhere.
Hold on, I can look it up. Meme. It is an ocean planet that was colonized by the hegemony for almost 100 years before the aquatic xenos that lived there made themselves known. Hegemonic forces broke the Memish military and incorporated them into the hegemony. Exploration of Mem has proven difficult because of the freestanding gravity wells deep beneath the waves. But it's basically a sea planet where they've gone full Chinese sea sort of style and built islands on it, and then colonized this sea planet. And on there, I guess they make a particularly good, from a kelp-based grape, they make a particularly good wine.
Yeah, from the kelp that grows near the gravity wells to get the gravitas name.
It's a seasonal wine.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, I figured out why the precursor race are called what they're called. And why they're precursors, and why they came before but they're not here anymore. It's because they erred.
Should we find someone to replace him? It's not too late. We can do it.
You know, it's not often I think, why did I ask you to come and play on my game, Sean? But whenever I do think that, it's more often than not you. I'm a bit sad it's taken you an hour to come up with that.
I came up with it ages ago, but I just didn't want to interrupt Drake when he was talking about his conspiracy theories. I was like, it's his time to talk.
Yeah, he
I'll hold
totally
this
just
one for a
sabotaged my
while.
Okay. um, okay, cool. That's cool. That's a cool detail. Anyone else got anything? No? Okay. Now, with your actual character creation, for those of you who haven't yet done so, you get to put various points into your starting stats. So you would already start off with 1 at 2 and 1 at 1. You then get to go through and put, if I can find it, character creations.
I think it's 2 points to assign as you want.
You
as
get
long as
4
it's
additional
job.
action points. So you start with 3 that's already assigned for you based on your class. You get 4 more. And no rating can start higher than 2.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
huge.
So you've got 4 more points to put wherever you want. Now, just because you don't have points doesn't mean you can't do that thing. It just means that when you do it in game, you roll dice, pick the lowest. There are ways to improve your chances. You can do group actions. You can have a friend set up the action for you. You can push yourself so you can exchange stress for re-rolls or whatever. There's various different things that you can do. Yeah,
What
it's
does
pretty
each
handy.
additional point do? Does it give you just more dice? Like if you had 3, would
Yes.
you roll
You're
3
building a
times
dice
and pick
pool.
the highest? Okay.
You roll 3 dice and pick the highest. You always operate off the highest unless you're doing the roll 2, take lowest. Yeah. So the more points you have, the better, generally speaking. What I do notice is Charlotte's put points in her experience, which she shouldn't have.
Ooh, you're busted.
Nah, I'm just clicking random
Take-
things, making sure those checkboxes are still working.
Uh-huh.
Save. Good save.
Is anyone in the
There,
party doing
there's
rigging? Was anyone doing rigging?
By
I
default,
think
by default, the pilot starts the point and rig. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna have a point in it regardless because I think it makes sense if I have cybernetics that I know how to how to repair them a
Yep.
bit if they get
Or
damaged.
hack.
It
Yeah.
makes sense for you to be able to hack or rig your cybernetics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm okay. Yeah, we'll talk about that. But if I want to skill that up, I'm not sure if anyone else because I don't want to skill up rig if somebody else is going to skill up rig past 1 point.
I was gonna do it past 1 point.
Okay, you can have that then.
Just because I already had the 1 bonus in it.
Right.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I'm just going through everyone's sheets and looking at what they're good and not good at. Oh wow, you've already done yours, Luke. Not fucking around.
I got 1 more to place. I just know I wanted 1 scramble, 1 skulk, and 1 rig, and I gotta put the last one in.
I
Okay,
think that's a
so
song, isn't it?
eh?
I think that's a song, isn't it? 1 scramble, 1 skulk, 1 rig.
I was just looking up what we were discussing in regards to your wanting to have cybernetics, Yog. You could replace your starting ability to you can spend stress, so there's 0 to 2 stress depending on what you're doing, to perform an inhuman feat only members of your species can do. That's for Xenos, but we'll apply it for your case as well. So if you want to do something that is beyond normal human measure, such as jump really high over something or whatever, that you can apply to your mech stuff, you can do that, your cybernetics. So it's a less so it's overall not as useful as unstoppable, but it's more broad. It's like a broader option.
So Right. They sound very similar, but unstoppable doesn't come with the drawback of stress. So I have two questions. The first is, what does stress do, and how do you reduce stress?
Now, unstoppable does have stress. It's pushing yourself, right? So
Oh, it does.
when
Okay.
stress is effectively your hit points, but it's also like a currency that you can spend to avoid stuff happening. Like when you resist wounds, you would roll to resist and then take that much stress instead. When your stress maxes out, you take a type of trauma. So that's cold, haunted, obsessed, paranoid, so on and so forth. When your stress hits full, you're out of this particular game. That's you done. You're unconscious, or you're just out, one way or the other. That makes sense. And then on top of that, you take a trauma. So that's a long-lasting effect on your character, which could be paranoid, obsessed, haunted, cold, reckless, soft, unstable, or vicious. And that's just something that you're encouraged to roleplay it in game because it makes you more XP. So it's like it's a burden, right? Now, the way harm works in this game is you've got 4 levels of harm. Only 3 of them are on your sheet because 4 is dead, right? When you get to 3, that's needs help, right? That's in a bad way. Your character's basically done. That's you lying there bleeding out, and the party has to save you. If they don't save you, you'll die. Then there's level 2 harm, which you can have twice. Level 2 harm is -1 dice to everything you do that harm makes sense to, right? So let's say you get shot, right? And that's a pretty bad shot. You're being shot with a big gun. That would be level 3 harm, right? Gunshot wound, to like gut wound or something, right? Like a gunshot wound. And you'd be like, no, I don't want to take the level 3 harm. I'm wearing armor, and armor lets me resist harm. So I'm going to tick a box of armor off of my sheet, and I'm going to roll my prowess to resist it, right? So in your case, for prowess, you'd roll 3 dice. Not that many, 3. And the highest, you deduct that number of 6. Whatever number you have left is how much stress you take, and then you reduce that level 3 harm down to level 2. So it goes from gunshot wound to, like, your armor absorbs it, but it cracks your ribs. So you're now at level 2 harm, cracked ribs, right? Okay. And you've avoided harm. That's what your stress is. But you can also use stress to have flashbacks. So let's say you're in a game and I present you with this conundrum that you never saw earlier. There's a guard standing on the door, and you're like, fuck, we didn't think that there was going to be this guard guarding this guy, and we need to get through that door to talk to him. And then someone might say, well, I have a flashback. I'm going to spend 2 stress. And I'm flashing back to a week ago when we were prepping for this job, and I actually met this guy in the pub, and we got along pretty good. And then, like he couldn't afford to pay his bar tab, so he owes me a favor. So I'm going to call that favor in. I'm going to go up and use this favor to try and get past the guard. Things like that would cost you 2 stress. Group actions cost stress. It's like a meta currency as well as your wounds. And the only way you reduce your stress is your vice, which happens between sessions. So you roll against your vice, and it's the same as resisting. You choose, I think, how does it work again, Sean? You pick your lowest. So in your case, that's for you, that's resolve or insight. You'd roll 1 dice, and then you lose that much stress. If you roll higher than how much current stress you have, you've overindulged in your vice. It's a bad thing. And that means that something has happened. You've disappeared for a while in a haze. In your case, you've disappeared into some brothel somewhere with a bunch of alien girls, and we're not going to see you for a while. You might want to play a different character for a session or 2. Or it might be, like you've been cut off from your local brothel. They're like, no, on this world, there's no more rolling around of Xenos girls. You've got a bad reputation. No one likes you. You smell funny. Your cybernetics leak all over the bed. Whatever. Like and that's cuts your vice off to you. Stuff like that. So stress is important. Stress is effectively your hit points, and then harm is the side effects of being hurt. Does that make sense? And then. Yeah. So reducing stress is easy. You can do that in your downtime. Every downtime you get 2 actions. Unless you're at war with another faction, then you only get 1. And one of those actions just has to be you indulge your vice. Now, to remove harm, that's a clock. It's a 6 clock, which you can see on your sheet there, the 0 and 6. When you get that healing clock up to 6, in this game, you remove all your harm. It's gone. There's no reducing harm like in Blades. You just wipe it all off. It just takes longer. And that you guys get a bonus to that because you're medical bay. You get an extra +1 die.
And we also don't have to source a doctor every single time we want to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the way that works is
What the hell are you talking about? I'm going to be with you at all fucking times. Sourcing a doctor. Rude.
That's what I'm saying. We don't have
That's
to.
what he's saying. You're there. You don't
there.
need to.
Taking a
Calm
shot.
Oh, I
down,
thought that was like a.
Charlotte.
Is this
Sorry, I
going
was-
to be the...
Oh, yeah, we
Sorry,
found
I
out
was,
who's going to be Verm this
correcting-
season. Jesus.
cranky bloody doctor? Jeez.
God, that's already been done in a sci-fi series, McCoy. All right,
No
calm
big
down.
dog manner. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, just like the skill I have. I'm not a doctor. I'm a.
Stark raving crazy alcoholic. I don't know.
Sorry, I'm a doctor, not a.
Yeah. So yeah, with that one again, you roll. I believe it's your lowest. What do you roll on for wounds again, Sean? Sorry, it's your lowest.
No.
No, it's your
the
tier
person
level.
it's the person doing the skill of the person doing the medical check.
Right, that's right.
So we'd be getting Charlotte to roll every time using her
Yeah.
doctor skill.
And then the higher she rolls, the more points you get towards
More
your
segments
recovery.
of the clock.
Yeah. Clear as mud. You'll figure it out pretty quickly. It's pretty simple once you get into it. Yeah. But stress is important. Stress is really important. It's not
Stress
something you want to.
is stress is critical. Stress is
The
your
hard part of
do
this
cool,
game.
Stress is
Yeah.
the do cool shit, and then once you're out of stress, you can't do cool shit.
Right.
Yeah, like stress lets you push yourself so you can add an additional die, right? So if you're like, oh man, like I only get 1 die on this, I really need to pass this, take 2 stress, get an extra die, shit like that. Or you can spend the stress and get improved effect or whatever. Like, this is something that you can spend, but trust me, you very quickly feel like you never have enough of it.
And because this is
yeah.
there's this really cool thing that this system does that I always love doing at the home game because it makes the players realize that they're about to deal with some shit. And that's, you don't get ambushed in this game so much, like, because it's all player focused, everything's forewarned. But what can happen is the DM can just say, I need you all to make this particular resistance roll. It's not, oh, I do a thing and then I make a resistance roll to resist the complication. It's, no, I'm forcing you. You're going to take stress from this because this player, or this NPC, or this situation is so, like, taxing. And then it makes all the players go, oh shit, it's a boss fight, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is cool. And I do that all the time with spooky stuff. And it never gets old. I enjoy it too much.
Now, spending that stress is one way to get additional dice. There is another one which I can see me doing a lot, and that's a devil's bargain. Devil's bargain is you're wanting to do something and you really want extra dice or you really want extra effect. I'll offer you a devil's bargain. So it's like, look, I tell you what, you can have your extra dice or you can get your extra effect or even you can just automatically succeed at what you want to do. But here's this thing that will happen. There is no stopping it from happening. That's always good to it's always good. It's always good. This feel free to suggest devil's bargains. Feel free to be like, well, can I take extra heat if I do this thing? And if it sounds like a cool idea, I'll run with it, stuff like that. Don't be afraid to ask for a devil's bargain. Don't be afraid to say, can I hurt myself to gain this? Can I willingly take harm to get an extra die on this roll or something? That's a devil's bargain. That's something that we can discuss. So, feel free to be inventive. This is a game that rewards inventiveness.
When did I ever say no to corruption?
Exactly.
I was just saying the same thing.
That role is meant for
Getting-
me.
One thing I will say is getting 1 point of trauma is it's actually sort of good having 1 point of trauma.
So you can
Because
rip
you
off
can-
for more XP.
Yeah.
So
It's
before
funny
the
how that
game is
happens, right? Like when I was new to the system, every time Sean would say, "Right, it's going to be desperate effect, or whatever, desperate condition, or whatever stance," I'd be like, "Oh fuck." Now it's like, "Fuck yeah, desperate." You mark the experience, and you like start rolling.
That's fun. Well, it makes it more fun to incentivize
Yep.
and reward just doing desperate like shit, and it feels more cinematic. I feel like
Yeah.
encouraging that.
Yeah,
The system
that's
really
the
does
point.
push for you to encourage you and reward you for doing stuff you should be doing in narrative games.
Yeah.
Doing the generic thing isn't going to get you XP. Being present isn't going to get you XP. Playing your character is going to
Yes.
get you XP. Developing your character.
Yeah,
is gonna
and
get you XP.
look at your character sheets too, and also the ship sheet, and see what gets you experience. So, with the Cerberus, at the end of every session, the questions we'll ask is, did you execute a successful extraction operation or capture of a bounty? If yes, that's an XP. If you did it like that's all you did, that's 2 XP. Did you contend with challenges above your current station? Yes, XP. If it's well above your current station, 2 XP. You bolstered your crew's reputation or developed a new one? Same. And then you express the goals, drives, inner conflict, or essential nature of the crew. So, we've already established things within the crew which are thematic, right? There's a general distrust of authority, a distrust of bureaucracy in large organizations. If you really embody this, if you are hired by the military and then you have it out with them because you don't like the military, that's stuff that's going to get you points. And then individually, you'll
Or you
have
quit
different
a
things
quit
as
a
well.
job halfway through because you find out halfway through that this is a front for like a massive organization or something like that. You make it cost you, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the sort of thing which you're going to get XP for. It encourages you to play up to your type. We already spoke about Luke's earlier. You get XP for, obviously, every time you make a desperate action roll, you get XP. If you address a challenge using force or threats, right? Clearly, Luke's character will get more XP for being aggressive and violent. That's just the nature of it. And then you express your beliefs, drives, heritage, or backgrounds, and you struggled with an issue from your vice or trauma during the session, right? So it's encouraging you to own up to your character's negatives. Charlotte has those last 2 are exactly the same. In her case, you addressed a tough challenge with insight or compassion. Knowing Charlotte, compassion isn't going to happen, but insight might. So
Okay.
I am not my
No,
characters.
you
My
mean
characters are not me. I can be compassionate.
Yeah, but insights, there's a lot of stuff there. She doctors her way through a bunch of stuff. It has to be a tough challenge. It can't just be like, I rolled an insight check. But like, there's a significant challenge, and your answer was, I'm going to use an insight thing, and you did it. You addressed it that way. Boom, XP. Drake, again, most of it's the same. In his case, you address a tough challenge with speed or flair, right? Either you have a fast chase, you anything, a bit of flair. Flair's pretty broad. If you argue that something's got flair,
Pull a 360, fire the grappling hook, and slingshot your way behind the enemy ship.
yeah.
while eating.
Like an example of that would be in Return of the Jedi when they're on the speeder bikes blasting through the forest, and Luke like slams on the handbrake so the other 2 speeder bikes go in front of him. That's flair, right? That's fucking cool. And if you come up with something like that in the session, I'll be like, okay, that's cool. There's your XP. You know what I mean? Sean is the same as everyone else, but of his, it's you address a tough challenge with charm or audacity, right? This is a good thing where being your character and you aren't the same person is handy, because let's be honest, Sean, you're not very charming. But
Can be audacious though. Can be very audacious. I was thinking when I looked at that, I'm like, it's probably going to be more the latter than the former. But, yeah, that's fine.
So this is all stuff to think about. I'm fucking looking forward to next week. Now that we've had this session, I've got a few ideas boiling away. I like this system because it encourages improvisation from the GM, which means I don't need to prep very much. So what little prep I do need to do, I'll do next week. Charlotte, you look like you want to be spoken to.
Yeah. Normally we would start off with debt, I believe, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Now, in this case, since the ship is being essentially handed to us, are we going to have any form of debt?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I'll figure out who you're in debt to, and I'll let you know. I kind of wanted to get an idea of what your characters were like before I assigned it, so I can make it all fit, as opposed to just randomly choosing factions. So there's a good chance that, you know, because you're related to Finn, maybe those racing guys don't like you, or the military guys have some call outs, or maybe some colonists, you know, feel like you owe them because you took a few too many kidneys or something sometime. Things like that. There's
Never from the
options on
colonists, only from the feds.
table.
I got ethics.
Anyway, we're at that point we need to wrap up. So I'm excited. I'm glad we got to this session 0 and get this out of the way. I'm looking forward to next week. I'm looking forward to see what Ryan brings to the table. But I feel like we've got a really good tight-knit group idea now, and we're feeling cohesive, and I'm feeling much better than I did 3 hours ago about this campaign. So let's we'll push forward with that and see how it goes. But yeah, that's how I'm feeling. Let's go around and see how everyone else is feeling. So first things first, we'll go with Charlotte. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I was eager to do a 0 session here with everyone because, like you were saying before, trying to get us all to be present at one given time that is not our game time is near impossible. I mean, we got New Zealanders, we have 2 Americans and a Canadian and an American in Japan, so we span the globe. I mean, what's almost midnight for me is 5 p.m. for you on Sunday is, 2 p.m. right now for you, Dog? Oh, sorry, 2 a.m. a.m. Yeah. So like we're all over the place. So getting any of us together to be able to talk for any extended period of time to get these decisions made was not going to happen.
We have a Canadian.
So yeah. Do I not say A enough? I'll fix that.
That's such an
see
American
my-
thing to say too.
Exactly.
We have a Canadian.
No. I mean, yeah.
Canadians are exotic
Okay,
in the
yeah.
United States.
Yeah.
Can't you hear my outrageous accent? But
Eh?
yeah, it's
Oh,
roof. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to this. It should be fun. It's gonna be a nice venture away from Simbaroom. Simbaroom was stressful at times. It was heavy at times.
We
It's the
killed
best
children.
kind of game. It's the best kind of
No,
game.
you know what? I agree. But still, it's nice to take a little bit more of a lighter step away from that kind of game and do the sci-fi tropey type of game that this sounds like it's going to be. Like everything that's referenced in the book is taken from something else, right? And every reference that you've used tonight has been taken from something else. It's Firefly, it's Star Trek, Star Wars, because they're not the same thing. Right? It's
So you're wanting light gameplay? Okay. Yep. Okay. No, I didn't have anything written down otherwise. That's all right.
hey, I will play whatever you throw at us.
hey man, I'm just saying we're doing sci-fi, and my character is based on Apocalypse Now, which is Heart of Darkness by Joseph Conrad. That ain't light. That is a lot of things, but light ain't it.
And my character is somewhat based upon the Repo Man from Repo the Genetic Opera. So again, that's not the lightest, but I just feel that the way this will go down is a little bit more. I don't know.
It's a little
I'm
brighter.
feeling-
It's not quite
Yes.
as dark. Yes.
It won't be as immersive as what Simbroom was getting to be. Is what I'm expecting. I could be wrong, and right, it's
No, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah. So anyway, I am Charlotte. I am Foxfire22, FOXFYRE22 in all the social media areas that matter. I am here now playing Celeste the Stitch on Scum and Villainy. I am GMing Conan, the Modifius 2D20 version, on Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can catch us here for that. We are going into our third episode, our second full game episode coming up this coming week. It should be fun. Everything I've had planned, I've thrown away because, it's the way things go. I had plans for season or for session 1 and episode 1, and we got through one of them out of like 5. So, well, I might have to tweak the story as we go. To revive some older projects I've done, because I would be very eager to do a second one if the interest is there. If you ever have time to check out a 10 to 12 hour podcast, go check out Fear and Loathing in the Third Horizon on Mud and Blood. mudandblood.co.uk is the website. Yeah,
MBcast.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
we
I
did a
hear
few.
one of the co-hosts of their podcast has got a pretty sexy sounding accent. That's what I hear.
I didn't know I hosted that. When did I start hosting that?
So yeah, that is me. I would really love to do season 2. There is some talks about it. I would love to get some more interest generated into that, because Coriolis is a pretty cool system. It's a pretty cool setting. So
yeah, there is
Wasn't
talks
this,
about
I was
that.
wanting to
Yeah.
go for Coriolis.
Yeah. Now that would have been a dark game. I'd run that straight up as a horror. Anyway, you're cool. mbcast.co. You heard that one. Ignore the other stuff. No, go check out everything Charlotte does. Charlotte's become like a roleplay virus on the internet recently. She's everywhere and spreading. So go and check it all out, because it's pretty good stuff. How are you feeling about all of this, Sean? Hey, how you ready? You ready?
I'm ready. I'm good. This is proof positive why session zeros are invaluable. They're just no matter how much you think you're ready for a session 1, if you haven't had a session 0, you're not as ready as you should be. I'll put it that way. Like, you can session 0 is always clear up confusion, always gets people on the same page, gets everybody really excited, because you've been doing doing your own thing, maybe sending a message DM here or there, but then you get everybody together to talk through the concept. You have this cool back and forth where I share an idea, you share an idea, and we merge it together, and it's no longer you've sat on your own thinking of a thing, it's you've all molded something together and you're about to start sharing it. And that's why session zeros are so good. So always.
And the nice thing about us on our session zeros is we've already got a season together, so we know how each other work. So it's not as if we're 6 people coming together for the first time and trying to work it out. We know the kind of assholes that we all are.
Yeah, we know how this is going to go. We know that the party's only going to have a doctor for a couple of weeks. We know what's going on.
No, we've flipped roles actually. So if someone plays the same thing as somebody else did last season.
Yeah, well, I saw when you said I get experience through being violent as a muscle, I thought, oh no, experience through being violent. Oh, I don't know if I can do that.
How did I not see that?
Picked the wrong character.
Anything else, Sean? You want to tell us where we can find you on the internet?
Hit everybody.
No.
I mean, if you've got ideas, because I'm an unnamed scoundrel so far. If you've got ideas for look or name, hit me up on Twitter. Just my handles, that thing there. And otherwise, check out all those awesome podcasts and Charlotte's show, because she does an amazing job at plugging things. And so I shall plug her thing for her as some payback. So check her stuff out. It's always good.
I mean, Conan's a good system. That's definitely worth checking out. When you play, it's like fucking 4 or 5 in the morning for me, so I can't watch. But Conan's always good. You can't go wrong with a Conan. Drake, it's good to actually have you properly planned in the game after having you come and help me kill kids that one time.
Oh, that was so much fun. Yeah, so much fun being responsible for the death of children. As now my HR people will call me because I'm teaching high school. Yeah. So no, it's nice to be on this side of the camera. And no, I'll plug Charlotte as well because during my lunch hour, because that's when Conan fired up, I started watching a little bit of Conan and forgot to eat my lunch. And so you have to come see Charlotte. Very, very entertaining. Of course, she apologizes for booting up the first few times again, which it's okay. Hey, so once you got the ball rolling, that was a great campaign. So looking forward to it. And the session 0 was a blast too, because I had some questions, and as I'm prepping high school kids for finals, I was more focused on that, and now it was easy to go, oh, okay, that. So yeah, I really like how this pilot's gonna go. So especially the pilot having now the conspiracy theorist. That's just gonna be great. That's just gonna be, feeding a dead horse. So.
Alex Jones mixed with Han Solo. Never tell me the odds.
This is where you make him. So you make him sound like Bernie Sanders too. For some weird reason. That's just in my head. I go, yeah, make him sound,
Germany. I'm going to listen to Bernie a few times and figure out how to be a pilot like that.
I've created a monster. Oh no.
Yes, you have. So, yeah, this is going to be great. I'm going to have to be sitting there going, okay, who's sick today, or who might be sick? So,
we'll see how it goes. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. If we can have all 6 of us in here without talking over each other, I can't see it not working. So, we'll figure it out. Yeah. We'll cross the bridges as they come. Luke.
Yeah,
how did you find it?
Good, interesting. I'm actually excited to actually read the rules more in depth now after discussing them a bit. And I'm looking forward to playing it. It sounds like the system will be accommodating of just. I remember you guys describing it as being like a cinematic kind of system, so I like that it's got a lot of flexibility in what you can do. I'm in love with the idea of having the Mary Poppins bag where you just get to like pull out whatever you want during the mission, within reason, obviously, but also pushing the boundaries of that. When I pull out my on the list of the muscle, like when I looked at the list of the items he has, it's like you got yourself like a bazooka, you got a detonator launcher, like some cool vibro blade. I don't know what that is, but that sounds cool. You got a flamethrower. Like, come on.
A lot of that stuff is quite illegal, though, just so you know. Detonators. The detonator launcher, you need to also tick detonators as well, I believe. So it takes up a lot of your gear. But yeah, it's he gets some cool shit. And also, by the way, just so you guys know, with your inventory, anything that's in italics you get for free. So that doesn't take up inventory space. So you can always have your fine martial arts style for your guy, right? Like that doesn't take up space to have that. Nice. To have mystical ammunition, illicit drugs doesn't take up space, shit like that. Yeah. So there's some cool things. I know what you mean, man. When I first played Blades of Sean years ago, the Mary Poppins bag is what sold me, because I was playing. We're playing Blades. It's more of a Victorian era thing, and I was like the face of the party, and I was trying to distract everybody in this museum while everyone else was out the back breaking into some shit, and I was like, fuck, I don't know what to do. I don't like the other guys had made a lot of noise, alarms were going off. It's like I need to create a distraction. I looked at my sheet and I saw I could have like a smoke bomb or something like that, or there was something I could do to. So I was just like, pull out this thing, yeah. And this, which is something which I'd never would have chosen to equip if I was playing a traditional RPG and buying equipment to go into this game. Being able to just pull something out, being like, I've got this now. I always had it. It was always on me.
And usually it's always the thing that makes sense for your character to have. Like, or builds the idea of what the character is, right? Like, yeah, anyway. I can't say enough good things about it. I think everyone's
Yeah.
going to enjoy the system.
Yeah, so I'm really looking forward to next week getting started playing the character. But
Cool. Yeah, man. I'm hyped. I am hyped, as I've just said. You can come and check out my hypedness at _Boganova_ on Twitter. You can go listen to that podcast that Charlotte was talking about at mbcast.co. We don't just do actual plays of Coriolis, we do other stuff that I'm in as well. So you can go check that out. But honestly, go back and watch our Symbaroum videos from last season. There was a lot of fun. We had some really dark, grim games and shit going on, which I enjoyed. Even if Charlotte wants something chill now, even if Charlotte's
I
gone
didn't say
soft
I
on
didn't
me.
enjoy it.
Otherwise, make sure you're here next week to check us out here on Counter Roleplay. And also make sure you check out all of our sponsors, which I'm supposed to quickly run through. fantasygrounds.com. Check it out for free. It's all our dice rolls, which you didn't see tonight because I was stupid and had GM's rolls set to invisible. whalengames.co.uk. Huge range of D&D Warhammer 40k miniatures, 20% off. And Tabletop Loot, who sell incredible dice, and we give away dice on their channel. That's our sponsors. That's been us. That's been our session 0. Make sure you're here next week for session 1 of No Space to
We
Fly.
break out of
where we play
jail.
Scum and Villainy. And these guys start off where they're going to end the next campaign. Otherwise,
We
that's
start
it
off
from
like
us.
we're playing an Elder Scrolls game in jail.
Yeah, I don't think about that.